It follows the story of Hanako Arasaka's secret child, that she had to hide from everyone, including her family, to protect him. For the sins of the father of her son. Hello everyone, Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in Cyberpunk as Johnny Silverhand's son. If you enjoy this content, please smash the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description. I hope you enjoy listening to it.
Really, what a sad life. If I had to summarize my life, it would be easy. Normal childhood and loving parents. But at the age of 8 years, I was diagnosed with ALS, or the creepy name, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It started out as a sleeping foot, playing with other children, one trip to the doctors, for what we thought was a simple sprain. And we actually found out it was a disease without a cure that in about 5 years would kill me. When I was admitted to the hospital shortly after I turned 10, my paralysis had progressed from my feet to the middle of my calf. Eventually it started reaching up to my thigh and I lost all control over my legs. By then I could only move with the aid of a wheelchair. At the beginning of my admission, my friends from school visited me every week, but as time went by, they became less frequent, where before they were every week. Before long they were once a month, until they didn't even come to visit me. I resented them a lot for a while. Those bastards have forgotten about me. They are healthy and happy while I was alone and dying little by little. With the few things I could do, I played a lot of video games and read and watched a lot of shows. It's one of the few things I did in the hospital room. The only people who visited me when I turned 12 were my family members, mostly my parents, who only worked and spent time in the hospital with me or tried to get me added to some study against ALS, hoping that it would cure me or give me more time to live. I was honestly waiting for death to pick me up. I even had thoughts of going searching for it, with the miserable life I had, but I didn't because of how much it would hurt my parents, who have given me everything, and how much it would make my mother suffer. Although I didn't say it, my parents noticed my dark thoughts, or maybe my simple depression. And they gave me a guitar. At first I was a little puzzled, but the truth is that it was the best gift anyone had ever given me. I became so obsessed with the guitar that I didn't even let go of it when the nurse came to take my blood for some analysis. So I spent another 4 years in my usual hospital room. Once in a while some old friend sent me a WhatsApp, which I didn't even bother to answer, which increased my few interactions with other people. But what do I care? It's not like they give a shit about me. And at the end of the day, I'm just an acquaintance to them at best who is dying. With the progression of ALS, I couldn't even stand up to play the guitar anymore. That gave me strength. I stopped talking even to my parents, and I spent a lot of time intubated as the muscles we use to breathe were also paralyzed. My father tried to repeat the success he had with the guitar. He gave me a carpet with the keys of the piano painted on it, and when you passed your finger over it, it made the sound of a piano key. That silly toy helped me a lot in the hard times I went through. My character also changed, and everything they told me bothered me. I remember, above all, a damn doctor I didn't know who told me that I should be thankful for having been alive for 8 years having ALS, that many people don't endure as much as me. My intubated self, who heard that, was perplexed. I had 16 years, half of which I have lived in this room with pain, reaching the point that every gasp for air was dreadful if it wasn't for the painkillers. And this guy tells me that I have to be grateful, thankful. Something inside me broke, and with the little sensitivity I had in my arms, I removed the damn thing I had in my throat that hurt like hell, just so I could say with my hoarse voice, "Damn you," to the one who told me I would have to be grateful. I had to be sedated so I could intubate again, but it was worth it. And so we come to what I think are my last moments in this sick, pale, and ill body. The paralysis continues to creep up and my lungs barely take in oxygen. I feel how the few parts of my body that I do feel are heavy and how my mind also feels foggy. As my last moments came, with my consciousness fading and my mind clouded, I remembered my parents. I hope they find the happiness I have taken from them. With fear of death that embraced me and came closer to give me her warmth, in my last moments of life. I hope with the little conscience that I had left, I wish that reincarnation exists. If it really exists, then please let me not have a sick and weak body and also to be able to remember my miserable life, to be able to live the next one to the fullest, without regrets. These cloudy thoughts made me remember one of my favorite phrases. The phrase was insane but full of emotion. So I want to live my life on my terms, Not like this disease has done by locking me in this room. I want to feel alive. And that was the last thing I thought before I closed my eyes. Japan, Yamanashi Prefecture, Hakone Castle, April 1st, 2055. In the vicinity of Mount Fuji was Hakone Castle, which was bought by the Arasaka Corporation after the Third Corporate War, in which the Japanese government became heavily indebted for the services the Arasaka Corporation performed during that conflict. Not only did they have to sell Hakone Castle, a Japanese tourist and historical landmark, but they also had to sell all the land around Mount Fuji. It was not only this land that the government had to sell. In fact, the Arasaka Corporation owns 29% of the land in the country of Japan. Almost one-third of Japan's land is privately owned by one family, the Arasaka family. Hakone Castle has maintained most of its original form but has been renovated to become larger and more imposing. The latest alloys have been used to fortify the building, giving it a darker tone, almost black. They had also built 4 towers in the form of classic Japanese pagodas, all on top of a base of stone bricks that raised the castle about 35 meters above the lake with the same name, Lake Hakone. Inside the castle, more precisely inside the stone brick base on which the castle was built, there was a hangar full of black aerodynes or AVS, with the symbol of Arasaka in red. In the hangar, there were 30 men lined up in 5 columns, in front of 2 other men. They were the elite members of the armed branch of the Arasaka Corporation, personally in charge of protecting the heirs and members of the most important family in Japan, the Arasaka family. This group of soldiers, unlike the rest of the soldiers and workers of the corporation, had to follow the ancient way of Bushido as a requirement to enter the unit by order of the leader and instructor of the unit. Standing in front of the 30 men was Musasha Hakate, Saburo Arasaka's main bodyguard for 50 years, head of security at Hakone Castle, and the most influential person in the castle after the Arasakas themselves. Musasha was older and had already reached over 70 years of age, 55 of which he had spent serving the Arasaka family. He had 3 sons, all of whom died for Arasaka. Musasha missed them every day but was also proud of how his sons died for the sake of his daimyo. In this current era, who else but the Arasaka family could fill the description of a daimyo? Musasha had a large and trained body, along with a lot of cyberware, which made him look younger. Musasha had 4 black artificial limbs with red markings, which gave him a more intimidating appearance, along with his katana at his waist. He is considered the best swordsman in the world. Currently, Musasha had retired from active duty as head of the security team of the Arasaka family boss because he made an unforgivable mistake that almost endangered Saburo Arasaka, his lord. With so many years of service, Musasha became a friend and confidant of the Arasaka family. Although Saburo had not reproached Musasha for the mistake, it was Musasha himself who could not forgive his own slowness in reacting to a situation dangerous to Saburo's life. He blamed it on age and suspended himself from active service. Thinking that he was past his prime, he decided to train the next generation of warriors who would protect the family. Musasha was explaining the 7 main principles of Bushido, by which they are governed in this unit. Gi, justice or righteousness. We believe in righteousness, but we do not force it on others. We forge it in our hearts. U, courage or bravery. We rise in the face of danger while others fear to act. We must have extraordinary courage, accepting the risks involved in being true to our own principles. This leads us to live a full, complete life. Jin, compassion or empathy. Through intense training and meditation, we become fast, strong, and wise. Enough not to use that power against others weaker than us, to have compassion for our equals and inferiors, but never against our enemies. Rei, respect or courtesy. We have no reason to be cruel, nor do we need to show our strength. We are respectful because force without reason turns us into animals. Makoto, honesty or sincerity. When we say we will do something, it is as if it is already done. Nothing on this earth will stop us from realizing what we have said we will do. We do not have to give our word. We do not need to promise or threaten, because the simple act of speaking is part of the action. Speaking and doing for us are the same thing. Mayo, honor or judgment. The most important virtue of all. We have only one judge of our own honor, and that is ourselves. The decisions we make and how we carry them out are a reflection of who we really are. Chugi, loyalty or responsibility. Having done or said something means that something belongs to us. The responsibility for it and for all the consequences that follow from it will be ours. While Musasha was reciting the 7 principles of Bushido like a mantra, which he, of course, follows as his own, someone came to interrupt him. It was one of Hanako Arasaka's private servants, who stood out in comparison to the members of the unit, dressed in training clothes and with combat cyberware installed on their bodies, compared to the woman dressed in a light red kimono, with a delicate figure. Seeing someone approaching, Musasha stopped his explanation, turned to his second-in-command, his disciple, and said, "Goro, I leave you to continue with the training of the others. Do not get distracted. Get serious. I do not want to come back and see you having another fight with Oda while the others bet," he said while reprimanding the behavior of his men while he was not there, and also of his disciples. "Yes, you can count on me, Masashi Shisho. Come on, let's start running a couple of miles around the castle," shouted Goro Tokemura, Masashi's disciple for 12 years, leaving Musasha alone with the maid. "Masashi-san, Hanako-sama has asked me to come in search of you. Hanako-sama wishes to speak with you," said the maid as she bowed, performing an ojiji respectfully to Musasha. Musasha only affirmed seriously without showing any emotion, but inside he was glad to be able to see little Hanako. He had known her since she was a baby and was one of the few people who held her apart from her parents. Even though one of his 3 sons died while protecting her during the Fourth Corporate War, when Militech attempted to kidnap her, Miyamoto, the eldest of Masashi's sons, managed to stop it and eliminate 28 elite Militech attackers with precise headshots. His accuracy remains a record at the Arasaka Military Shooting Academy. As he arrived, following the maid, to Hanako Arasaka's private room, which was in the part of the castle protected by the 4 towers and the former pagodas that created a shield that could not be seen with the naked eye, Musasha, through the large windows, could appreciate the shield generated by the 4 towers with his left eye, which was an implant. It was not shaped like an eye but a blunt patch with a small red light in one of its corners. Musasha, seeing the landscape from the top of the castle, came to doubt that the land was contaminated, that there were large radioactive storms, and that there were desolate wasteland areas where there were once forests or jungles. Because if all that was true, then what was in front of Musasha had to be another world, green as far as the eye could see, with a forest of sakuras in bloom surrounding the castle, and the small village next to the castle kissing the lake. The large red torii gates in the 4 cardinal directions of the lake, truly a paradise on earth. Musasha thought before entering Hanako Arasaka's room. As I walked in, I could see Hanako sitting elegantly. She stood up with a smile on her face as she saw me coming. Hanako was wearing a traditional floral kimono with white, red, and gold themes, giving off an impression of elegance, wisdom, and serenity. "Of course, Saburo, old friend, you are lucky to have Hanako as a daughter, not like that unfilial son, Yorinobu. I didn't trust him and his supposed return to the family after his supposed rebellious phase." "All right, Masashi-san? You seem worried about something," Hanako said with a serious face. At my lack of courtesy in not greeting Hanako first, I made a 90-degree bow with the ground, leaving me parallel to the ground, and said, "I am honored to be able to see you, Hanako-sama. Forgive my lack of tact earlier. I was just stunned by the beautiful lady you have become." With a small smile, Hanako affirmed as I finished the most respectful ojiji I could do. "Please, Masashi-san, don't call me Sama. I don't like when others call me that, let alone you. To me, you are like part of my family, like a strict grandfather, but with a good heart. Besides, I'm in front of you right now only because of the sacrifice of Minamoto." When she said Minamoto's name out loud, I could only nod my head. Even though it's been years, every time I think of my children, it hurts as if it was the day they left. Hanako, upon seeing the change in my expression, closed her eyes, and when she opened them, a noticeable change had taken place, as if she had made a decision to the doubts that had assailed her before speaking. Before she spoke, she turned to her assistant and signaled with her fingers to leave us alone. "Masashi-san, I need your family's help once again. It may be selfish of me, and you may think I am taking advantage of your beliefs, but I can only count on you on this. For me, what I want to trust you with is more important than my own life. So, Masashi-san, I need you to swear to me that whatever you decide here, you can't tell anyone what I am going to tell you." Without understanding what Hanako was referring to, I closed my eyes to tell myself before saying anything because I knew that once I made a decision, there was no turning back. "Hanako-san, I won't say anything you tell me." Hanako stood up and left the room. When she came back a few seconds later, she was carrying a sort of semispherical object covered with an elegant black cloth. "Musashi-san, before I tell you anything, I have to ask, do you remember what happened when I turned 18? Said Hanako as she put the semispherical object on the table in front of us and sat down again. "Of course, Hanako-san. It was the only time you disobeyed your father's orders. You wanted to leave Japan for the first time and see the world. Faced with Saburo-sama's refusal, you ran away and were unaccounted for 8 days, during which Saburo-sama did not send for you. Yes, when I turned 18, I felt that I had grown up in a beautiful cage that did not represent the truth of the world. I wanted to know the truth, I wanted to see how this world was, and I wanted to stop being a spoiled ignorant or my father's toy that reminded him of his beloved wife." Hearing how Hanako felt, I did not know how to respond. On one hand, I understood that the young Hanako of 18 years old was eager to know the world. But on the other hand, I understood Saburo's feelings in wanting his daughter not to know the hardships of this life, even if the price of that is that she feels imprisoned in the most beautiful cage one could imagine. When I escaped at 18, I hacked and stole an AV, but I didn't know where I could go that my father wouldn't find me. So I went to the only place I knew where Arasaka couldn't control. Not quite. When I heard that from Hanako, I had a bad feeling because of the place she had chosen, and this feeling was confirmed when she continued with her story. "I went to Night City. I can't say it was the brightest idea that ever occurred to me, but that's how things happened. When I arrived, I left where I could the AV and went to know the city. I tried the local food, didn't like it. I moved around downtown and even went shopping. I couldn't imagine how good the freedom felt. Intoxicated by this feeling, I wanted more and had more than I could handle. Somewhat nervous about what might have happened to Hanako, I waited for her to continue. Too excited about the new experiences I was having, I ended up near an abandoned warehouse where supposedly a concert was going to be held that, according to a green-haired madman who had given it to me in a pamphlet, would be the greatest concert I had ever experienced in my life. And so I ended up in a bad neighborhood with 3 men and more machines than humans pointing at me, giving me some dangerous expressions. "Hanako-sama, tell me nothing happened, please," I said, unable to contain myself for events that, as the head of security of the Arasaka family, I could not forgive myself for if I had touched a single inch of Hanako's body. Seeing me so upset for her well-being, Hanako smiled calmly at me and said, "Calm down, Musashi. Someone saved me from that bad situation. He chased away the maelstrom. I think he told me they were called that. I didn't pay much attention to the name of the group. He even consoled me, saying I was officially a citizen of Night City, since it is mandatory that someone tries to rob you to be one. Please remember when you finish the name of the person who helped you. If I can, I have to give him a reward for his selfless action and my absolute gratitude." When I said that, Hanako made a face that looked like she was amused by what I had said and continued talking. "I take you at your word, Musashi-san, but I think you will regret what you said when I tell you what his name is." The way she said it, I believed her, but I couldn't understand what she was referring to, making me have another bad feeling for the person who saved young Hanako. After saving and comforting me, when I was shaking with fear, still remembering the gun barrel on my face and the disgusting expression those men were making, the man who saved me took me to the nearby warehouse. There I found out that he was the singer of the band that was going to give the concert I had been looking for. When I told him that, he asked me if I was one of his fans. I couldn't answer. I was puzzled. I didn't even know what the name of the group was, let alone one of their member. When I told him the same thing, I annoyed him, making him, with a cocky smile, say to me that I just needed to stay until the end of the concert to be one of his fans. After hearing such a smug comment, I stayed at the concert just so I could tell that presumptuous, womanizing singer that he was wrong about me. But, when I heard how he sang, the pain and sadness he expressed with every lyric he tasted in his songs, something inside my 18-year-old self was duped. When the concert ended, the man, seeing that I had stayed until the end, approached me again, with his cocky smile, waiting to know what I thought. Contrary to his expectations, as I looked into his eyes and remembered the way he had sung, I cried. Seeing me cry for the way he had sung, the man was surprised and started caressing my head as if I were a little girl. After my tantrum, with him pacifying me, I Hanako interrupted her story as she looked into my eyes somewhat excitedly and said, "I spent the next 7 days with that man. They were the happiest and freest I have ever lived, even making me think about abandoning my name, Arasaka," Hanako said quickly, creating the first glitch in my brain. Before adding, "until I overheard a conversation John had with a tall blonde woman. In that conversation, she was telling him about the horrible things Arasaka was doing on the net and how she had created something that allowed him to discover proof of the horrible things we had done." When I heard what Hanako was saying, how she named John, and the tall woman Hanako described along with the something she had created, my expression changed, and Hanako also noticed it and stopped her story. "Hanako-sama, please, don't tell me that you had intimate relations with that man," I asked, almost begging. Hanako didn't answer at first. She just moved her hands to the object covered with a black cloth that, at this point, I had forgotten about its existence. She uncovered it, showing a sort of urn with an orange crystal, in what seemed to be. How? How can it be? How could you have had a child with him? Out of all the men in the world. With the damned Johnny Silverhand. When I said that, I realized I had stood up and was screaming. I shut up and sat down again, looking at the pod with the orange glass containing a baby inside. "Hanako-san, please tell me how this is possible. What you told me must have happened more than 40 years ago, but the state of the baby barely seems to be 7 months old. Can you tell me what happened after that? Did he know who you were when you were together?" I asked Hanako, still unable to believe what she had told me. How could she have had relations with that rabid dog Johnny Silverhand? That man had assaulted our base in Night City several times. For God's sake, he even detonated a nuclear bomb, killing thousands of Arasaka workers. And now I find out that Saburo's favorite daughter had intimate relations with that man and even created a new life. Affirming, Hanako continued speaking. When I heard what the blonde woman said, I wanted to come out from where I was hiding and say that it was a lie. But was it? I didn't know. I was always good at moving around the net, but I never looked for our family's secrets. When I heard John answer her, saying that he wished he could kill every single member of the Arasaka family himself, it broke my heart. It was the first time in my life I had ever fallen in love with someone. If he knew who I was, would he kill me? I wanted to shout that we were not that bad, that I had never done anything wrong or hurt anyone. But remembering my actions, I also remembered where I grew up, in a safe, warm, beautiful place with people at my service and protection taking care of me 24/7. Even people going so far as to give their lives for me. I realized that while I had done nothing wrong, I was also complicit in my family's actions. I remembered your teachings, especially Chugi, or responsibility. Having lived my life with all those wonderful deeds, it also means that the sins belong to me. After all, the responsibility of having lived my life in the light makes me also responsible for its shadows and the consequences of everything that it derives from, doesn't it, Masashi-san? When Hanako told me that, I didn't know what to answer. Partly, I was glad that my conversations with little Hanako had marked her so much as to remember them in her bad moments. But another part of me wanted to tell her that she didn't have to think like that just Saburo, her half-brother Kei who is no longer here, and even I, we have done all those bad things so that she doesn't have to feel guilt or responsibility. For us, it seemed good to sacrifice our souls, as long as a part of them, in this case, Hanako herself, was free, without ties, without remorse or guilt. That's why Saburo didn't send for her when she escaped. If Hanako had decided not to return, to relegate the Arasaka surname, and to be free and happy, then Saburo would have let her go. Seeing me in my thoughts, Hanako responded to the question I had asked her. No, he didn't know my name. He asked me after the attempted robbery, but I stuttered and just said Hana. To answer you about my baby, Hanako said while looking affectionately at what seemed like a sort of portable artificial incubator where the baby was floating. When I finished listening to the conversation John had with what I later learned was Altira Cunningham, I returned to where I had left the AV, crying because of what I had heard. I was lucky it was still there, and I returned to Japan without saying anything to anyone. I don't know if John looked for me, if he suffered because I left, or if maybe he was indifferent. I just wanted to remember John for the 7 wonderful days we spent together before learning of his deep hatred towards Arasaka and the darkness of my family. I apologized to my father. From then on, It's the story, you know. Father just nodded his head and nothing more. For me, everything changed when 2 weeks passed, and I felt weak. Although I slept more, I was vomiting in the mornings, alerting my maids. It took me a short time to realize what all these things meant. I was pregnant by a random man at the time, the one I had a relationship with in my only moment of freedom I have ever had in life. When I found out, I didn't know what to do. Do I tell anyone? Do I tell my father? I answered all those questions with a no. I knew what would happen if I told them what had occurred. I could put the unborn child in danger, just because of what some people within the corporation itself might think of a bastard, fatherless child of Saburo Arasaka's daughter. So I decided not to tell anyone. Besides, I wanted my son to live on his own terms, free from the interference of others, out of the cold and empty corporate life, without the shadow of Arasaka tormenting him, as I would have liked to live my life. Hanako interrupted her story as she closed her eyes, as she did when she decided to tell me all this. But when she opened them, it was different. Now, when she opened them, she looked like another person, as if the face she had before was a mask. It reminded me of the face Saburo made when he acted as the head of the Arasaka family and corporation. Cold, with no compassion or empathy, just sharp and icy eyes. Also, after I found out I was pregnant, I thought about what to do with my life, what could happen to my child. Then I remembered again your teachings, Musashi-san, or maybe Sensei at this point. So I came up with a plan. I looked for a doctor inside Arasaka who could remove my fertilized embryo from my uterus, put it in a state of stasis, and keep it frozen until I could prepare more so that it could be born safely and so that it could grow happily, and also so that it could be free, without anyone knowing that it exists. When the doctor finished the whole process, he put my son, who was just a zygote, in a mobile refrigerant device, and I hacked the doctor. I killed him so that no one would know about my secrets. Hanako-sama, you killed an innocent doctor, I said, surprised, while Hanako coldly admitted that she had killed a person. Surprised? Musashi-san? Tell me, why are you surprised? You guys have been doing much worse things than killing a supposedly innocent doctor. So tell me, Musashi-san, why are you so surprised? Hanako said to me with cold eyes, indifferent to my words of surprise and reproach at her admission of having killed someone. She didn't mind having killed. You know, Musashi-san, when I found out I was pregnant, it was also when I looked up a little, just a little, of the things that our family had been doing. I was surprised. I understood why so many people hate us. Since I had decided to accept the responsibilities of the two faces that being an Arasaka means, I could also act like one, right? So no, Musashi, responding to your expression, I don't care what you think about me, nor about the plans that my father, my older brother Kei, and you had created, about the future you wanted for me. I decided to live as an Arasaka, with all the implications that means, both good and bad. When did she change so much? Saburo, old friend, I think we have underestimated your daughter. As for the doctor, before I called any doctor, I looked for one who had a record, who was corrupt or a traitor within the corporation. I haven't changed as much as you think, Musashi. I just lost my innocence and ignorance, and now I have something more important than myself to protect. I will do anything to protect him. Even if I have to kill, I will kill. If I have to lie, I will lie. I will do whatever I have to do to make my child live. When she finished her sentence, she stared into my eyes with a fierce look, almost as if she were threatening me. When I saw that, I only saw an Okami fiercely protecting her pup. I could only smile with pride to see Hanako's fierce and determined look of protecting her baby. I understand most of what you're saying, but I don't understand why I'm here, why you're telling me all this, or what you want me to do, I said while looking at the baby, who had their eyes open and almost seemed conscious. With a proud smile and somewhat dangerous eyes, Hanako said, before I answer you, Musashi-san, let me ask you, do you know where I invested my most personal shares and what kind of projects I invest in within the corporation? When she said that, I stopped looking at the child in the incubator, turned to Hanako, and answered, if my memory serves me right, mostly in medicine, better healing drugs, increased cell division, muscle and bone enhancement therapies, and even nervous system treatments for sick people that weren't viable for the masses due to their high cost per session. Also, genetic purification technology for hereditary diseases, things that your father was very proud of you for, aiming to improve people's lives. I also remember you are a pioneer in nano. I interrupted myself to look again at the child, who was still in the incubator, unable to believe what Hanako had hinted at with that question. Hanako, how many of your investments have you used on your own child? I asked, calling Hanako without an honorific suffix due to the seriousness of the insinuations about her using experimental technologies on her own child. When she heard me, she smiled, and what I initially thought was a dangerous look turned into one with a hint of madness. All of them. This child carries in his body research worth billions of new yen, but that is nothing compared to the nanotechnology in him. You think I don't know what my father wants to achieve with Soul Killer? When Hanako mentioned Soul Killer, I couldn't believe what she had said. How had she found out? It even made me forget my anger at what she had done to her own son, almost experimenting on him. How do you know that name? I stammered. Do you think I wouldn't investigate John's attacks on Arasaka within a few years of meeting him, or how he died 10 years later, or how my father has a digital copy of John? Do you think after what happened in 2023, I wouldn't examine every little thing to guarantee my plans to secure my son's life? Everything John did, the good and the bad, and the way he died only delayed my plans, making everything more difficult and secretive. Now, my son was not just any man's son. John earned many enemies, even my father. I had to wait for Johnny Silverhand's face to be forgotten. I couldn't believe what Hanako was saying. She knew about Saburo's obsession, Soul Killer, a program that created a digital copy or engram of a person's personality and memories, converting them into code. You could say that by paying with your soul, you could achieve immortality, something that Saburo had been seeking even from Johnny Silverhand's engram. How does she know all this? Snapping me out of my astonishment, Hanako spoke with an arrogant tone. You know, I don't understand why my father is so obsessed with the program that woman made. Do you know what I think of Soul Killer, Musashi-san? A talented brain dance specialist could do it again or even better, simply by taking a person's memories and editing them into a loop. All you need is a blank AI that enters that infinite loop of memories and learns to act like the memories you have shown it. Long story short, Soul Killer sticks a basic blank AI inside a person's memories or engram, making it learn to act like the person in those memories. But at the end of the day, it will still be a copy that you paid your soul for. I can't understand why everyone is so impressed by that woman's creation. I was speechless at Hanako's opinion. I had certainly underestimated the woman in front of me. She also seemed annoyed with Alt, the creator of Soul Killer, and I could imagine why. But still, it made me believe that maybe Hanako might be the best choice as the next head of the family if Saburo retired. The Hanako Arasaka in front of me had all the necessary qualities. She was cold, intelligent, and determined. On the contrary, I came to a different conclusion. Instead of burning your soul to become a ghost of your former self, I decided on another alternative: improve the container to protect the soul. At first, I thought of raising him myself, Hanako said while caressing the incubator with affection. But those were my last naive thoughts I allowed myself to have. I decided to strengthen my son with everything I have. Musashi, I want you to withdraw from Arasaka altogether. Leave Japan for an area little controlled by the corporation, and raise my son. Teach him to fight, to live, and to survive. But, above all, I want him to be free. I want no one to be able to catch him. I want him to live a life without shackles. PUK with that little noise. We turned to the source, and I stared. It was the baby, awake inside the orange glass incubator, eyes wide open as he rested his hands on the glass, looking at us as if he was listening to our conversation. Hanako was surprised to see this, but then smiled and said, "It seems the little one has woken up. Wait a little longer. You'll be able to come out soon." While she touched some buttons on the incubator, making the little one go back to sleep, I knew I had to make a decision. I looked at the child, who seemed to be affected by the sedative, their eyes closing little by little. But before that, he tapped the glass with his small fists, looked into my eyes, and smiled with joy, as if he liked me. Seeing this, Hanako also smiled, seeing her son laugh. With that little event, I made up my mind. I had nothing in Japan apart from my job. My wife, Aoi. changed since our children passed away. For sure, she would love to raise this baby as her grandson. I accept, Hanako-sama, your request. But I would like Aoi to also come with us. I also wanted to know where you have thought of raising your little one. Thank you, Musasha. Of course, I was counting on Aoi Obasan. As for the city, I have decided. I think you won't like it. I chose it by the same criteria I used when I escaped. Hanako-san, don't tell me you want me to raise your son in that damn city. Yes, that's the place his father died. The little legacy John has left is in that city. I don't want my son to know nothing about his father. John may have been insane, but he's still the father. As for the boy's abilities, I will inform you. One more thing, his name. Masasha-san, let me introduce Arasaka Sora, or also in American, Sora Linda Arasaka. When she told me his name, I thought about what she said about wanting no one to be able to catch him, and to think that she would call her son that, Heaven's Sky. 14 years later, 8:30 a.m., June 12, 2069, Night City. Beep 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 beep. Good morning, Night City. Yesterday's body count lottery rounded out to a solid and sturdy 22, half in Hayward courtesy of the Valentinos and Maelstrom. You know my advice for anything Night City related, get out of here. Ha ha ha. Why are you living in a city with no future? For those of you still out there, I have something special for you today. The first track uploaded to his Cybertube account was by the mysterious soloist who has driven music lovers crazy. They say his name is a tribute. Others say it's a joke, but nobody knows. I present to you Dream On by Jackie Blackhand. Hope you like it, and if not, damn you. Jackie Blackhand, Dream On. Every time that I look in the mirror, all these parts on my body become heavier. The past is gone. It went by like dusk to dawn. Isn't that the way? Everybody's got their dues in life to pay. I know nobody knows where it comes and where it goes. I know it's everybody's sin. You got to lose to know how to win. Half my life's in books written pages. Lived and learned from fools and from sages, you know it's true. All the things come back to you. Sing with me. Sing for the year. Sing for the laughter and sing for the tear. Sing with me, if it's just for today. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord will take you away. Sing with me, sing for the year. Sing for the laughter and sing for the tear. Sing with me, if it's just for today. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord will take you away. Dream on, dream on. Dream on, dream until your dreams come true. Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. And dream until your dreams come true. Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. Today is going to be a good day. I thought excitedly about the plans I had for the day as I woke up. With the alarm I had set, the radio turned on, and I could hear my updated version of the Aerosmith song that I uploaded 2 years ago on my Cybertube account. I did it because I had a guitar and a mic, and because most songs were lost when the new network was created, locking the old one behind the black wall. Many of the bands from my old life didn't exist in this world. Truth be told, I didn't care. More songs for me to play. I laughed as I got up from my bed, making Eco, my dog, rise from his. He looked at me expectantly, ready to start a new day. Good morning, puppy. Today is going to be a great day. Today we are finally going to move that beauty. I hope it works today, I said to Eco, who gazed at me with his camera-like eyes. While searching for clean clothes in my somewhat messy room, I carefully looked at the floor to avoid stepping on any screws, microconductors, processors, or other small pieces scattered around. I had already stepped on some, and they hurt more than my memories from when I was 7 years old, still healthy, and stepped on a Lego piece. Robotics is a new hobby I have in this world. I love building my own things, like helmets, weapons, and small non-explosive grenades. Grandfather Musasha forbade the explosives after my room exploded a little when I was 11 years old. I've been living my new life for 14 years now, and I can only say that I couldn't be happier. This world sucks. It's scary, people die for nothing, the world is polluted, 77% of animal species have been lost, and the social imbalance is abysmal, much worse than in my old life. But despite all these things, I am happy. Every day, I hear the strong beating of my heart, reminding me of the joy of being alive and healthy. I have a strong body that even scares me sometimes. I have 2 grandparents who take care of me and teach me everything, from martial arts and discipline. Although when Grandpa starts talking like Yoda, I just tune out, to cooking and the traditional Japanese way of etiquette from Grandma Aoi. I don't like it, but she gets so happy when I do it with her, I just can't resist. I can also get back to playing the guitar, which I missed so much. I've even uploaded many songs to the net. Although I'm a little embarrassed. What embarrassment. People loved the songs I uploaded. I didn't hold back. I uploaded everything from classics like Aerosmith, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Black Sabbath, and Led Zeppelin to songs I liked from The Weeknd, Foo Fighters, Blink-182, Sum 41, Johnny Cash, Queen, and, of course, Daft Punk. With that repertoire of artists, it's no surprise that I became famous. Well, Jackie Blackhand became famous. My real name and face remain a mystery. I jokingly called myself that name for Johnny Silverhand, adding Black as a tribute to my favorite character in the Cyberpunk universe, Morgan Blackhand, the best solo merc in the world and one of the best shooters alive. Also, I hope he is still alive. There's no info about him in the game. When I chose that name, I didn't think much. I never imagined that I would become so famous that my songs would reach the radio. Speaking of Johnny, my supposed father, nobody told me. It was only necessary to look at myself in the mirror when I was 10 years old. I was like a mini Keanu before I had my suspicions. With my face with Asian features, it seemed familiar when I saw it in the reflection. But it wasn't until I was 10 that my mind clicked. And I realized. I was surprised. In the game or lore of the Cyberpunk universe, no son of Johnny is named, but when I looked in the mirror, it was undeniable. Although I didn't understand how I was born when Johnny died 50 years ago. When I asked Grandpa about my parents, he said nothing, just a sentence, "I'm sorry, Sora, but that's not for me to tell you." It wasn't until I uploaded the videos to the net that I gained what you could call a fan. That fan was special. They wrote private messages to my CyberTube account. That's how we communicated. In their first messages, they asked me things that left me puzzled. They asked, "What happened to you, to sing with so much pain, anger, or sadness, and sometimes great joy that you showed when you sang? You shouldn't have to be like that." When I read that message, I was surprised at how perceptive this person was. When I sing some songs, it makes me navigate through my memories to bring out that emotion in the song I sing. In Dream On, at first, I sang it with hate, resentment, and sadness, remembering that hospital room. But it changed when I got to the verse, "Dream on, dream until your dreams come true." At that part, I changed completely, remembering the joy of living my second life. As for "it wouldn't have to be," I asked. They didn't answer but wrote, "I can't tell you. But I want you to know that you made me cry with your songs. You remind me a lot of him." Him? Who were they talking about? When I wrote back, "Haha, thanks for the comparison. I hope he is one of the good ones." Without paying much attention to him, I thought they were referring to another singer, maybe Kerry Eurodyne, until they clarified with one sentence, "You take after your father." When I read that, I froze. How did this mysterious person know who I am and who my father is? He died almost 50 years ago. How? I asked without an answer. Although they didn't answer personal questions, there was something that made me want to continue conversing with this mysterious person, knowing that they knew who my father was. From the things they had said, I came to an assumption about who this person was. Or rather, the woman who wrote me messages on my CyberTube account. Over time, she became my confidant, my counselor who gave me another point of view on my problems, and sometimes my mentor, teaching me things I didn't know. At a certain point, she even became my benefactor, like when I mentioned wanting to buy a better guitar and the next day had 4 different styles in front of my house. She became someone very special. Back to Jackie. I had no manager nor did I want one. I had no record label nor did I want one. I just uploaded the songs I remember to the net, to the YouTube of this world, CyberTube. I have to say that in this world, they love the word cyber. The site pays me for the plays on their platform, and I let my songs be free to the popular domain. They weren't mine, after all, so everyone can use them for whatever they want, even the radios. But I made it clear that I wouldn't let my songs be used by corporations for their commercials or shitty products. That decision earned me a lot of fame. By releasing my songs but not letting corporations play them, people fell in love with the idea that I wasn't looking for money and was only interested in the music and that people enjoyed it. This began to change the perception of my name from a joke to a tribute to a certain maverick singer with a silver arm who also didn't like corporations. After dressing in some black Converse with a futuristic touch, a pair of beige knee-length tight pants that then flared out to the waist, and a black t-shirt with a blue circular symbol, I wore a replica of a leather band jacket from an old rock band, without any markings on the back. I left my room, going down the stairs of my two-story house, an apartment in the center of Night City. The house was neither too luxurious nor too cheap, as it was in a relatively safe area. The walls were exposed brick, including the second floor where the rooms were. There was a small terrace that Grandma Aoi had transformed into a small garden with plants and grassy ground, turning a cold Night City terrace into a small green haven. On the first floor was the kitchen next to the living room and dining room, all in a large room with one wall being large windows that reached the ceiling, allowing you to see the city. There was also a large adjoining room with security, where my grandfather kept his weapons and where I trained. As I was running down the stairs, my grandfather, who was reading what I think is a newspaper on a pad, looked up. Apparently, he didn't like reading holographically because, according to him, he looked like a fool staring at the air. "Hey, Sora, don't go downstairs so fast. Rushing is not a good companion. Being in a hurry leads to rushing. Rushing leads to making mistakes, and making mistakes can lead to death," he said in Japanese. There's my favorite Asian Yoda. I can say that because I am Asian too. My grandfather, Musasha Hatake, also known as Oji-san, is a monster at 84 years old who seems to be in his 60s. He has a tall figure that gives the vibe of an ancient samurai. He even abides by the code of Bushido, which he tried to instill in me with blows, because I refused to follow that old-fashioned and boring creed. We always spoke Japanese at home. "Oh gee, don't be like that. I'm in a hurry because today is the big day. We are finally going to move the truck." "Sora, don't call me OG. Where are your manners? Besides, I don't want you to cause a scene that brings the NCPD or the FDNC, like your curiosity when you decided without consultation to dismantle a grenade that I did not give you, blowing up a part of the house." OG, don't be like that. About the grenade, I found it. How else could I have gotten it? You know I am a saint, a noble warrior who follows the noble path of Bushido. I can't associate with shady people who would sell a grenade in bad condition to a child, I said, to which my grandfather growled at my joke about me following the way of the samurai. "Haha, me, a noble warrior who sacrifices himself for his lord? Don't make me laugh. With all I have suffered, I don't sacrifice myself for anyone," I thought. "Musasha, stop trying to instill your beliefs in little Sora. Let him find his own way. Here, Sora, I have prepared food for you. It also has something for you to eat for breakfast while you're on your way to your friend Judy's house. I also made some food for her." Grandma Aoi said. "Thanks. You are the best, Aoi Obasan. Thank you so much for the food," I said as I took the small backpack my grandmother gave me, filled with food, and gave her a kiss on the cheek. She just smiled warmly. How can I describe this beautiful old lady who takes care of me and supports me unconditionally, who has suffered as a mother the worst one can endure 3 times, and yet did not close her heart? Of my new life, Aoi Obasan is an inspiration to me, and I love her for it. As I was about to walk out the door, Grandpa said, "Didn't you forget something?" I turned around, acting surprised, as I closed one eye, stroked my long hair from behind with one hand, and smiled jokingly at Grandpa. Oji-san, don't tell me you want a kiss too. These lips are sealed only for beautiful ladies, he. Noticing a vein swelling with my joke, he threw something shaped like a black stick that I caught in my hand. When I examined it, it looked like a tanto but with hardly any tsuba, the piece that separates the blade from the handle and protects the hand from the hilt. Knowing it was this 40 centimeters sheathed tanto, I unsheathed it. It had a black blade without an edge, which disappointed me a little. Then I ran my finger along the mark on the hilt and, with a sound close to a hiss, the blade extended to a 75 centimeters long black blade without an edge. It seemed the blade was made of segments that were magnetically joined, giving it a touch of a cutter in the joints, resembling the sword from an anime that killed titans. I compressed the blade again, put it back in its sheath, and attached it with the sheath fasteners to my belt at the back of my hip. I stared at my grandfather, who had already lowered his gaze back to his reading. I walked over and gave him a hug, the old Sunder. I knew he wanted it too. Without waiting for any reaction from the two of them, I ran out and grabbed an 80 centimeters board next to the door, leaving the house with Iko following me. POV. Musasha. When Sora left the house, Aoi and I were alone. She turned to me and said, "He really is a special boy, isn't he, Musasha?" I could still feel the warmth of Sora's embrace, my grandson. I nodded and replied, "Yes, he's an impertinent and rebellious boy, almost rude. But he has a fire inside him, not like his father's, full of spite and hatred. His is warm, with an innate happiness toward life, as if he values every breath of air, every heartbeat." Hearing my words, Aoi added, "Yes, that boy shines. He makes people in a room notice him when he's gone. Musasha, I'm glad your strict character has softened so much. When you taught Minamoto, Takeda, and little Ishida, you made them follow the Bushido way strictly. But with Sora, it seems you didn't push him too hard." I shook my head, denying her assumption. "No, Aoi, I haven't softened. I haven't changed. I taught and instilled the Bushido way in Sora, just like I did with our sons. It's just, that boy didn't bend. Every time he talked back or disrespected me or the creed, I beat him down, just like I did with our 3 sons at the beginning of their training until they were so beaten they didn't dare speak and had the right mentality for the training. But with Sora, it was not as easy as with our 3 children. That child is too stubborn, Aoi. This will not please you, but I kept beating him until he respected his teacher and his beliefs." I expected Aoi to be angry at hearing this about her dear grandson, our grandson, but she smiled and almost laughed. "Fufu, erere. And well, Musasha, how did that go? Because of seeing how Sora is, I don't think you had much success." I stared at my wife, who continued smiling despite my serious look. I sighed and spoke. The boy, no matter how many hits he received from my Bokken, kept looking at me with defiant eyes and telling jokes about samurai. When he was so beaten he couldn't speak, he still looked at me with sharp eyes, almost like a bird of prey. After he was so beaten he almost lost consciousness and could no longer move, he stopped. And when I approached to take him to his bed, he bit my leg as if he were a rabid dog, turning back with his determined look, without showing defeat. This process didn't just last a day. We went on like this until one of us gave up. Aoi kept smiling and asked, "And who won the battle of the big heads, Musasha?" "You really want me to say it out loud, don't you, woman?" I said, as Aoi clapped her hands like a child, eager to hear the result from my mouth. Seeing her like that made me smile, seeing the change Aoi had since we moved from Japan and started taking care of little Sora. It was like she came back to life, from living in a black and white world to the lively and colorful woman full of warmth in front of me. I lost. No matter how many blows he received, that boy would not back down. I reached an agreement with him, in which Sora would not follow the rules of Bushido strictly, but I made him promise to keep them present in his mind to guide him in what to do or how to behave. Seeing Aoi's happy expression change to a worried one, she said to me, "Musasha, will Sora be safe with just a sword? The streets of Night City are not safe." I listened to my beloved Aoi, worried about Sora's well-being. I thought about the dog that followed Sora and the boy's capabilities. As for the robotic pet, the boy's own unique creation, well, almost. The improvements that girlfriend of Sora made to the code of the robotic pet really showed. Where before it looked like a rigid machine with a base code that Sora installed on it, now it looked like an almost living animal. Iko, the robot dog that Sora had created, had a hologram covering the robotic skeleton, showing a beautiful dog with the body of a wolf but the face of a dog with its ears down and a white color that went up from its legs to its chest, where it became blonde with gray and black locks. I don't know where he got the idea, but Sora had created an impressive pet. It still hurts me where that damn robot dog bit me. It happened when Sora showed me the improvements in the code made by his friend, and I questioned its worth in a fight. Iko, hearing him angry, jumped and bit my cheek, while Sora laughed so much that he threw himself to the ground laughing, while I had his robot dog hanging off my cheek. A damn dog. I still remember when 6-year-old Sora complained that the Night City Public School was a mess. He looked inside the school library and found that all the chips containing various subjects were either corrupted or outdated. Sora grumbled that he couldn't find anything he wanted there. When I asked him what he was looking for in the library, I was surprised. Sora was a very smart but rather restless child who liked to move, run, fall, and cry for joy instead of pain when he fell. That kind of thing puzzled me a little. When Sora told me that he wanted information and knowledge about robotics and engineering, I was perplexed. I didn't expect Sora to pursue knowledge, given his typically restless nature. When I reported this to Hanako-sama, she seemed a bit worried about her son's sudden interest in engineering. She nodded her head and informed me that she would send me a basic AI with all the knowledge Sora might need. A few hours later, I received an email to my secure account with what appeared to be an AI containing a couple of petabytes of engineering knowledge, even beyond university level. This made me smile at Hanako-sama's generosity towards her son. The chip in my hands was worth more than a degree from one of the best universities in the world because it could be reused. Hanako-sama sent it as casually as one would send a photo, despite it being a secure account. Even recalling Hanako-sama's expression about her son's sudden desire to study engineering, I couldn't find anything wrong with it. Yet, I couldn't forget her expression, which held surprise along with some fear. Why is she afraid? How many more secrets does my grandson's body hide? I asked myself. Hanako-sama informed me about the capabilities of her son's body shortly after telling me his name, and I could only stare in disbelief. Sora possessed passive enhancements in cell division and improvements in muscle tissues. His muscles were full of fine fibers that, when gathered in large quantities, created muscle tissue. Sora's muscle tissue fibers were braided, which, while seemingly trivial at first glance, increased the average muscle strength and speed of his body by 30%. His muscle fibers had the same shape as braided steel cables used in bridges and elevators, without changing the shape of the muscle. His bones were plated with light alloys, making them more resistant and flexible, which in turn made them harder to break. His nerves were reinforced and could carry much more information, plated with an alloy with the best electrical conductivity. This alloy was primarily made of gold, combined with silver and aluminum, the three metals with the best electrical conductive capabilities. This enhancement allowed the electrical impulses of Sora's nervous system to move much faster, giving him greater reaction time. It was almost as if he was born with a passive Sandavista. When Hanako-sama informed me about all this, I didn't know what to think. Was Sora still human after all these modifications? To make everything even more astounding, Hanako-sama hadn't yet told me about the nanotechnology she was so proud of. When she finally did tell me about the nanotech, I didn't know what to say anymore. Hanako-sama got up and prepared tea while I sat there, my brain blocked, not knowing how to react to Sora's capabilities. She calmly sat down, finished making and pouring the tea, and started drinking hers when I finally managed to speak. Hanako, does this mean he doesn't need any cyberware? Just the code and composition, and his body would create it? Hanako-sama, having taken a sip of her tea, placed the cup elegantly on the table and told me, not only that, Masashi-san, he can't be hacked either. Let's take, for example, that Sora learns the software code from a simple Kiyoshi eye implant. By learning the software code, the nanomachines inside Sora's head would emulate the lines of code created by the Kiyoshi software. If someone tries to hack... Hanako-sama paused, her expression turning dangerous as she imagined the supposed hacking attempt on her son. Excuse me, Masashi-san. As I was saying, if someone tries to hack Sora through his eyes, once he knows the composition and code his body can recreate, the hacker would enter the emulation created by the nanobots. Upon noticing the security flaw, they would shut down that emulation and create a new one from Sora's memories of the original code, invalidating the hack or the attempt at it. Hearing that, the 70-year-old Musashi Hatake, with 55 years of experience as a field operative, missions of infiltration, elimination, and asset recovery, being a veteran of 3 corporate wars, and a survivor of all 4, was speechless. The potential of the child I had been entrusted to protect, raise, and teach as if he were my family was astounding. Sora had the potential to be the best battlefield operative anyone could have ever imagined. Well, not anyone, as the woman who kept drinking tea as if nothing had happened knew. She watched my face in disbelief, as if watching TV or reading a book, not caring about the implications of the improvements she had made to her son. Musasha, don't let it slip your mind. Sora's cyberware recreation capabilities are limited. For starters, to create them, he needs specific materials and alloys that his body or the nanobots don't have. These would have to be added separately, like the programmed vitamins he would need as he grows up. His enhancements also need to grow with him. To create them, he needs many hours of being unconscious or asleep. To clarify, the nanobots cannot, by design, begin to replace Sora's body parts as they wish. Only a necessity for survival can override the lines I have created to protect my son's body from the nanobots. Think of it as an imperative evolution for survival that would cut the nanobots' limiters. As for minor things like infections, poisons, or viruses, he's protected with the nanobots. Infections and poisons are eliminated if they are harmful in any way to the body. Regarding viruses, the nanobots support the immune system so that the leukocytes or white blood cells can create antibodies faster and in greater quantity. About medications or drugs, the nanobots are connected to Sora's brain as an unconscious part of Sora himself. If Sora thinks he wants them, the nanobots will examine the substance, and if it has no long-term danger, they will leave it in the system. I'm speechless. I really underestimated the saying that mothers will do anything for their children. But Hanako-sama, what controls the nanobots? Musasha, are you there? Moshi moshi, said Aoi, snapping me out of my memories of the conversation I had with Hanako-sama. Yes. Sorry, Aoi. I got lost in my memories. Don't worry about the boy. I have trained him well, I said, hiding Sora's true abilities from Aoi. Citizen registration. At the age of 3 years old, all children have the right and obligation to create their citizen ID. With the installation of eye neural and 2 ports in the neck, this mandatory implant is paid for by the governments and sponsored by the WCC or World Consortium of Corporations, which, among all the members, pays for this simple implant to register the population. It is not considered cyberware, nor is it considered that one has altered their body after the installation of eye neural and the 2 ports in the neck. This process is mandatory because once the child goes through the process, his ID is registered as a citizen in the resident country's government database. The installation of the neck port can be optional if it is alleged, for security reasons, in case of illness, or in cases of personal religious beliefs, leaving the citizen to choose. But the installation of eye neural is mandatory. It can only be replaced by its previous version, which is less invasive for the user, a subcutaneous identification chip mainly used for religious reasons in case of discrepancy on body enhancement, with a unique function as a personal identifier. Eye neural, a chip that is installed at 3 years of age and serves as a universal ID, passport, and, if the citizen has a driver's license, driver's ID, and also allows the user to call another eye neural, read messages, and also buy directly by connecting his eye neural to his bank account. As I was leaving the building where my apartment is, I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the hot, violent, and corrupt air of Night City, as if it was trying to warn me how dangerous this city was. It was as if the air itself was telling you, damn you. Damn you, air. I shouted, making people turn to stare at the foul-mouthed young man shouting in the middle of the street. I didn't care. I focused on controlling my eye neural, also known as IDN, to send a message to Judy's IDN. Wakey wakey. IDN Sora memory, sound 133.wav. Wake UP. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 20. I laughed as I thought about the message I had sent to Judy, who I was sure was still asleep. In the message, I had attached a sound file, sound 133.wav, which was a fire engine horn. As sleepy as she was, I was sure it annoyed her. It wasn't just for laughs. It was to remind her what we had to do today. Today we were going to fire up the old beauty, our summer project, our baby, a beat-up fire truck next to Judy's and her grandparents' apartment. After yelling and sending the message, I reached into my jacket pockets, pulling out a pair of small, wide rings not completely joined together and a rubber band. The rings were black with metallic edges. I put them on the top of my ears and used the rubber band to tie my not-so-long black hair into a ponytail. It was something like a short ponytail. I wanted to cut it, but both Aoi Obasan and OG San did not let me, Something to do with the hair belonging to the parents, not the children, according to Aoi Basin. According to OG-san, cutting the hair symbolizes defeat and loss of honor. I tune out when he tells me his tales of honor this and courage that in his fortune cookie mode. Adjusting my jacket, I touched one of the jacket's saved settings, and a red Oni face with a mechanized part appeared on the back of my jacket. With no time to waste, I hopped on my magnetic levitation hoverboard, MLH, or as people call it, AirBS, airboards. I started heading to Judy's house on my Airb while listening to music from my Semarings, which used imperceptible vibrations in my ear, making my eardrums vibrate to hear the music without generating noise. As I moved around the city, I put on a very special song. I played Who's Ready for Tomorrow by Rat Boy and IBDY. Yes, they existed in this world. I discovered them when I searched for music from my past life on the net, when I started to make and upload my versions to Cybertube. When the song played while I was gliding on my board, I just enjoyed the experience, moving through the city while Liko chased me with a holographic tongue hanging out of his mouth to the side. I just watched the city and its people while I was a teenage outlaw. I was a teenage outlaw. With no worries on my mind, with no worries on my mind. And now I'm getting older. And now I'm getting older. My heart is growing colder all the time, whoa. My heart is growing colder all the time. I started to sing. How many times can one enjoy such an experience, listening to the song of a great character from a series while you really move through that same city, full of neon and shadows? While I was enjoying the trip, I passed by the Zero District and the square of the corporate center, aiming to get to the bridge that connects to Watson to reach the Kabuki district, more specifically Charter Street. As I was passing by the giant square in the corporate center, I received a notification in my head. It was a message from Judy in response to mine. I took off my music and got off the Airb, attaching it to my back where it connected to the magnet I had installed on the inside of my jacket. I was now carrying my 80cm steel board, with the dark gray, almost black interior floating about 3 centimeters from my back. I stopped to check my IDN so that I could read Judy's message. TCH, you already coming here? Today is Saturday. You know, we don't have to get up so early. Boom. Maxed AC siren noise. Ha ha ha. Gotcha. I wasn't asleep. I had breakfast an hour ago and I'm out next to our baby, checking the wiring. Don't be late, Sora. We still have a lot to do. TCH, I muttered, knowing that my joke hadn't surprised an awake Judy. I stuck a finger in my ear as a placebo relief for the blaring Max TAC siren that Judy had attached to her message, although I hadn't really heard it with my ears. It was a bit to ease my mind that was still beeping a bit from her joke. The message also reminded me of the breakfast that Aoi Basin had prepared for me. When I rummaged through the backpack she had given me, I found 2 bento boxes that I imagined to be our food that Grandma had prepared, and I came across a cylindrical container. When I unrolled it like a map or scroll, there were 4 snow-white balls with a black rectangle on each of the rice balls. OH, Grandma's onigiri. I don't like store-bought ones, but Grandma Aoi's were delicious. While having breakfast, I moved around the pedestrian part of the square, enjoying the views. When I got to the center of the square, I could see the glass dome where, in 7 years, the final battle of the Edge Runner show will take place. That made me think about the characters of that show and where they would be now. When I thought about that, it also made me think about how they're Sharak, NO. Not characters. Not anymore. For me now, they are not. They are flesh and blood people, well, and metal. I know their destinies, their sad and violent fates. Like Rebecca, a foul-mouthed and energetic girl, loyal and violent, in love but alone. Rebecca's brother, who loved jokes but died as a bad one. Maine and Dorio, a couple who would sacrifice themselves for each other and who died together because of Maine's stubbornness for cyberware. Lucy, a beautiful woman broken inside who finally found her moon only to explore it alone. David, a guy with tremendous humanity but who burned it to live other people's dreams. And Kiwi, a serene woman with too much experience, especially of the bad kind, dying alone thinking of the friend she had betrayed. When I thought about those people and their bad destinies, I felt helpless. Do I really believe that I can fight against Smasher? Or save David from cyberpsychosis? Or change Maine's mentality so that he doesn't lose himself? Shaking my head, I felt lost for the future. And what would come next? Johnny. The death of Saburo. A possible fifth corporate war. Could I survive all that? Could I keep Grandpa and Grandma safe in this cold world? Or Jackie's fan? My mother, Judy. If the information that she created a chip that can create soldiers in seconds, she won't be safe. With my head full of doubts, losing even the appetite for Grandma Aoi's food, I stopped walking and looked at the sky with a desperate look, thinking about what the future held. Trying to find an answer to all my doubts, I looked at the sky without knowing why. How much time passed? At some point, I realized that I had a hand on my chest and I could hear my heart. Stopping thinking, I only heard thump thump, ba boom, ba bump. When all of a sudden, thump thump, ba boom, ba bump. Ha ha ha. I started laughing like a maniac. I couldn't control it. I knew what it meant. My heart had responded to me, and I couldn't contain my excitement. I was excited. A part of me was excited. For what was going to happen, for how much I could change, and for how high I could rise. When I understood that emotion, the doubts and fears that once filled my mind seemed like an illusion. When have I ever felt so alive? Why am I afraid of the future? There are worse things than death. I remembered that hateful hospital room, my useless, sick body, the painful gasps for air, and the faces of people looking at me with pity but also gratefulness in their eyes. Even though their lives were miserable, there was someone worse off than them. When I remembered all that, I understood it completely. I don't have to be desperate or afraid of the future. No. I know. What's worse than trying and failing is living an empty life. I'd rather die young, with my heart beating so hard it feels like it wants to escape my chest, almost hurting me with a sweet pain that makes you realize what it's really like to be alive, savoring every emotion. I'd rather that than live as my former self or go with the flow of society as an empty shell. Nothing to excite you enough to make your heart race. Nothing to make you cry with happiness or scream with anger. Just a slow, repetitive, boring, normal life. Like a cow on a modern farm, drugged and having its soul sucked out. When I understood all this, what my heart had relayed to me, I looked up at the sky and smiled. Just wait, Smasher, Johnny, Arasaka, Faraday, Night City, or whatever is behind the black wall. I don't care who the hell you are. I will live. You won't be able to stop me. If I have to kill, I will kill. If I have to stop being human to live free and protect my loved ones, that's what I will do. You will not take away my smile. I am Sora Linda. And, I don't know who you are. I don't give a damn. I will rise so high, no one will be able to touch me. After my brief moment of madness, I felt a tingling sensation, like a mild electric current running through my body. I didn't know my body could share in my excitement like this. I had no memory of something like this happening in my old body. But then again, it sucked and only brought pain. This tingling feeling was the first time I'd ever felt it in my life. I like it. When I finally stopped focusing on myself and looked around, I was surprised by what I saw. It was as if the universe was rewarding me for my crazed resolve. Two people I'd seen before were approaching me, talking to each other. A woman, about 28 to 30 years old, in a somewhat cheap women's suit, and a kid, maybe 3 years younger than me. Yeah, he'd be 11 now, with his hair spiked forward, wearing a formal jacket and pants that looked a little odd on him, like he wasn't comfortable. As they walked past me, I followed close behind, listening to their conversation while eating on a gyri a few feet away. The woman looked really angry with her son. Really, son? Did you have to behave like that at the academy interview? Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. The guy told me to be sincere when he asked why I wanted to enter the Arasaka Academy, and I was. I said, I don't want to enter. I'm doing it to make my mother happy. I don't know why it bothers you. Being sincere is a virtue. Mom. You told me so. I'm just being the way you taught me to be. Hearing this, I could already imagine the mother's expression. PFFHM. Restrained laughter. I stifled a laugh as best as I could at the boy's reply. I saved it for later, but something slipped out, making the woman turn toward me with the accumulated anger from her son's words. I ate and shook my head, trying to act like I was listening to music or the radio, anything to explain why I was laughing. The woman stared at me for a few seconds, clearly not buying my act, her eyes serious and reproachful as if she was about to say something. But she turned back to her son and said, "Son, who the hell taught you to talk like that?" Shouted Gloria Martinez to her son, David. "Mama, don't be angry. I didn't call anyone like that at the interview for the academy. They were impressed because of my grades at school. Only, they looked at me something wrong when they came to the bank inspection and the lack of a family member, saying that I don't meet the minimums to get a scholarship." When Gloria heard that, she made a sad face but kept listening to her son, who continued talking. "Mom, when they look at me like that, I want to leave that place with the looks they were giving as if I was worse than them. I stayed because of you. I don't understand why you want me to go there so badly. I don't know what I want to do, but..." Gloria stopped her son and arched toward him, leaving her purse on the floor. I leaned on the nearby railing watching the cars pass underneath as I ate my last onigiri and continued to catch Gloria's attention. "David, I want you to reach the top. I want you to have a family. I want you to not have to worry about the eddies. I want you to have insurance to cover you if anything happens to you, and when I am gone, I want you to have a secure job. I want you to be safe in this dangerous world. I want you to reach the top of Arasaka with a smile, knowing how high you have reached." Listening to Gloria's maternal instinct taking over her mouth made me wonder if it is for those reasons that my mother sent me away, wherever she is. As I was thinking about my mother and what Gloria said to David, I noticed a cyber junkie. Just kidding, they are still called junkies, but you could consider them super junkies, who was approaching Gloria's bag on the floor without her seeing him because his back was turned. About the super junkie, these guys are up to their asses in blue crystal or whatever drugs they catch, like Syncump, Dorf, and Synth Coke. And when they are at the peak of their organic high, let's call it drug generated, they pop in a BD of anything that will give them another high, with BDS of murder, sex, snuff, gore, or someone using the same drugs they already have, adding the effect of anything you can imagine. It's like Rule 34, but with BDS. If you can imagine it, surely there's a BD of that. Giving you another shot to your brain, but this cyber, adding the 2 moments of ecstasy, frying your brain in dopamine. There are cases that are told in the news and on the radio, of people that their high is so high that many of their neurons cannot withstand the large amount of dopamine and neural impulses, which make their heads explode. Well, not that, but their neurons can't take it, dying, leaving junkie with brain damage. Or if they are lucky, they have only killed their hypothalamus. With it, their dopamine releaser and regulator of hormone production, leaving junkie, unable to be happy naturally, with continuous mood swings, leading them little by little to violence or madness. In short, drugs, high with BDs, and everything left in his mind. These were the ingredients chosen to create the super junkie, but if accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, chrome thus, the cyber junkies or cyber psychos, were born. Cutting the Powerpuff Girls intro song out of my head, dropping the joke, and now seriously, this is how you get to a type of cyber psychosis. Those who destroy their minds with drugs, and if they are too chrome, in the end their heads are a collection of different software without a mind to guide them, making their cyberware software become corrupt as they try to synchronize with the melted minds of their users, generating failures in both the cyberware and the user. Moving as I threw the last bit of my breakfast into my mouth, I moved to intercept the junkie who was approaching to grab Gloria's bag. I would not intervene, but the Choom carries bad intentions. It seems that to avoid being followed, he wants to push Gloria off the lookout. She would not fall to the road because there is the structure that connects the walkway to the plaza, but I doubt he cares about that. "Be careful," I shouted as I grabbed the outstretched arm of the junkie who was trying to grab the bag first before pushing. When I grabbed him, I turned on myself, spinning the junkie with me, and when I noticed that he had his chest leaning against my back with his center of gravity above me, I threw him forward with all my strength, throwing him over me and the opposite railing, as he wanted to do with Gloria, but I threw him towards the road where the cars were passing. After a few seconds, pack, body crashing, hunk, beep, screech. With the sound of honking horns and braking cars dodging the junkie's body by sheer luck, I turned to a surprised Gloria and David at what just happened. As the junkie stood up, not knowing what had happened, and ran out of the middle of the road. I looked at Gloria, who looked angry about something when she said to me, "Thank you for stopping that man. But you had to throw him towards the road? You know he could have died, right?" When I heard that, there was a smile on my face at the woman who was worried about a man who wouldn't hesitate to throw her, without doubt, for stealing a purse, which probably doesn't have any cash in it. Freaking idiot, the junkie. You know he intended to throw you, right? I answered the same way she asked me. I then looked towards the young 11-year-old David, remembering when I saw all the amazing deeds this kid will perform in a few years' time and how I felt seeing him. I came up with something that just made me laugh in my head as I turned my gaze back to Gloria. As I also noticed the traffic and the types of vehicles passing underneath us. You know, Gloria, it's fine that you want your son to get to the top of a relatively secure job in an office or be insured with trauma team and all that. But have you thought about the price David will have to pay? To get to those positions you imagine, he would have to pay for it with his smile and happiness. In a cold world where you can't even trust your reflection, treacherous and lonely. I said as Gloria was stunned by what I was saying, or perhaps bewildered that I knew her name, as I looked at her eyes fondly for my memories of the series. When I saw a large garbage truck approaching, I braced myself as I said my final words to the mother and son who were looking at me. There are many ways to live, and no doubt there are some better than others, but instead of marking a path for David, help him find his own, so when the time comes for him to start walking it, it will be the one he chooses and he won't end up walking someone else's. I finished saying as I grabbed the railing facing the road as I jumped in sync with the garbage truck passing underneath, jumping with one hand on the railing and the other grabbing my ebb, which I brought to my feet in the air that magnetically attached to the board. Bam! Landing on top of the garbage truck with a loud noise, I advanced towards the front of the truck where the driver is. When I was on top of the driver's roof, I came down on the windshield, stepping more on my front foot and hitting the glass with the compressed air passing under my board, making the driver hit the brakes while using my nailed foot as a pivot to turn, being thrown into the air with the accumulated force of the braking of the truck by the driver when I damaged the windshield, and my own when turning my board with force. Shooting into the air smiling and screaming out loud, while my heart was pounding, as I spun myself around in the air. I was always impressed with David's actions, and now he was going to be the one to be impressed. Also, I'm really grateful to my body. I've always felt comfortable when I move, like it's easy for me to go through the process of imagining making a movement and then performing it correctly with my body. Yeah. Landing with great speed and with so much force that the repulsion of my air was overcome, making me brush the ground, created sparks as I landed on the catwalk structure, making me almost fall. I advanced towards my exit of the traffic circle over the structure, and I jumped back hard towards the road, heading for the exit direction of Watson and Little China, finally heading towards Judy's house with no further distractions on my part. I also sent my route to Eco to go on his own or to meet me on the way according to his judgment of programmed action. While on the catwalks, Sora had done his stunt for what could be termed as showing off in front of an 11-year-old. A mother turned to her son and said, I said, annoyed by the expression my son was making and also by the things that annoying young punk had said to me, it's true that he had saved me from being robbed. I carry several chips with eddies from our account to pay different bills. If I pay them myself, we save the transfer fees charged by the bank. If it had been stolen from us, just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. I know I should be grateful to the young man who saved us, who unhesitatingly threw the junkie on the road. What is he thinking? Doing something like that? Is he crazy? He didn't really seem to care about killing him. Sighing, trying to calm down. I still resent what he said about David having to pay with his smile and his soul to move up in corporate life. I already know that. Damn it. I'm not stupid. I know how cold and twisted people can be, more so if they move millions of eddies as their job. But what other alternative do I have for my David to live a quiet and secure life? That's the only thing I want for my son, and with his potential, I know David can reach high. Hey David, are you listening? Hey Mom, if, in the next quarter, if I get into 0.5%, would you buy me an ebb? Hearing that, I could only notice a vein swelling in my forehead at the bad example my son was indirectly asking me to imitate, bright-eyed, like a puppy begging for food even from a stranger. 0.5%, I said in my head as I thought about my son's plea negotiation. If David really manages to reach the top 0.5% of his grade at the Santo Domingo Public School, then he will almost certainly be picked up for the Arasaka Academy for the next course. Okay, but you have to promise me that you will not behave like that young punk. You hear me, David? I said, annoyed, remembering again that annoying young man, whom I couldn't hate for some reason. Just as by his look I felt some affection and concern in his eyes, almost as if he knew us. 15 minutes after leaving the corporate center, I arrived at Judy's house, or rather, her grandparents' house. After separating from Gloria and David, I crossed the bridge to go to Watson, passing by the crossroads of a certain alley where there is a certain bar that I'm dying to enter, but I'm still too young to be allowed. Besides, it seems that you need a certain renown in the city to enter. I wonder if Rogue will be able to recognize my resemblance to a certain ex of hers. After crossing the bridge to Little China, I had to go all the way up Kabuki to finally get to Charter Street. As I slid past the 3-story rectangular building with the second floor overhanging a bit of the building with most of the frame protruding orange. As I stepped off my board in front of the door, wondering if I should go first to greet Judy's grandparents, Ainara Alvarez, and her husband, just as I was thinking that, an older man, 58 years old, in a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, with suspenders that joined his dark brown pants, which gave him a somewhat old-fashioned look like the hipsters of my former life, arrived as he looked at me with a smile on his face. The man was Pedro or Peter Alvarez, Judy's grandfather. He was a very nice and calm man, slim with round glasses on his face that made him look like an intellectual. Said Peter as he had real fear on his face for calling his granddaughter Anita in front of me. Relax, Peter. It's not like I'm going to call Judy that from now on. I thought as I put on a smiley face. I said, knowing this man would get my little geek joke. As I thought he was amused and added. I affirmed while also asking Peter something that has been bothering me. Seeing my face of concern as an owner-creator for his pet creation, Peter smiled and said, TCH, in my mind before that, the traitorous robot abandons me to go find Judy, without paying much attention to Peter's joke. It's not that I'm not interested in Judy. She is funny, intelligent, and very cute, and we get along very well, and we share many hobbies, but I remember that in the game she is only interested in girls. Although I have seen her giving me some glances when we worked together in a truck and I took off my shirt to be more comfortable to work in the summer heat of Night City. I don't know, maybe she's also interested in boys, but she had a bad experience with them and she decided to go for girls only. Who knows? Having finished talking to Peter, it makes me recognize all the technological knowledge that Peter has. Without really knowing, I just say for my own opinion, but I think Peter could work perfectly as an engineer for any corporation. I still remember when Grandpa gave me a chip with a teacher AI that had all the knowledge about robotics and engineering that I would have wanted. When I asked Grandpa where he got it from so fast, he told me with a loving smile that from one of his old acquaintances from his job as a bodyguard of the one who lived in Japan. I met Judy when I was 7 years old when she moved from Laguna Bend. Shortly after arriving at school, when I found out we were going to the same school, I wanted to meet her because of the game. When I met her, I realized that we had a lot of things in common. We are also the same age, and, like Peter, she also really likes engineering and robotics. We always had topics of conversation. I even left her the chip that Grandpa gave me a few months after meeting her for Cortana to teach her. That's the name I gave to the AI teacher inside the engineering chip. It was a basic teacher AI that explains all the knowledge inside. Well, it recites it and answers limitedly to what it can. When you ask, it lacks a lot to be called a real teacher. That's where Peter came in. A few days after giving him the chip, Judy, somewhat embarrassed, told me that her grandparents wanted to meet me, as Judy did not hesitate to show her grandparents what her new friend had left her, mistakenly thinking it was a simple chip with some technological knowledge. When I told my grandparents that I had been invited to a friend's house, my grandmother seemed very happy that I had a friend inviting me home, as I have always had acquaintances that I talked to, but not really kids that I could call friends. I really wasn't interested in having them because of the definition I have lived by of friends, and I thought they weren't worth having. That changed for me when I met Judy, whom I approached out of pure curiosity to see how much they would be alike. Judy was the first person I saw of the game. I was curious if everything was really like in the game, if the faces and the characters of the people I know could be taken into account in the future. And when I saw her, she had her iconic hairstyle with her hair to one side but longer, as if she had never cut it and without shaving the left side of her head, instead wearing her hair from the left loop behind her ear, with beautiful brown hair, with a much more childish face, but certainly with the same features she had in the game. And when I got to know her, I was surprised. She was really lazy. She was always late for school because she rushed until the last minute. She had to sleep even if she had to skip breakfast in order to sleep a few minutes more. When I met that side of her, she told me about her grandparents with affection and about her new house in Night City. I got to know the kind of person that Judy Alvarez is, which you can't get to know just by playing the game. As I said, she is so lazy that when her grandparents move to Oregon, if they do, she will live in the same bed she did when she was 7 years old in the same room, never conceiving of moving house, just to avoid having to make the move. Also, knowing that something had to happen to her to change and become her non-future version of the game, to not be able to notice the joy that was inside her when you met her in the game, as it is now, like the message she sent me, if I played a joke on her, she would not forget it and would always send it back to me sooner or later, and how she was depressed for a whole week when Peter was robbed for the first time in Night City. He got out alive, but not unscathed, from the blows he received, one with a gun but he damaged one of his ears and had to get a cochlear implant. How happy she was when I left her the chip with knowledge. How thrilled she was as she told me a year ago that she had found an abandoned fire truck near her house and that she wanted us to repair it together, as she had originally thought to do it alone when she was a little older. But when she remembered me, she was glad that, because if I helped her, she wouldn't have to wait years to get started. With all those little things, I got to care for and be friends with Judy. Going back to when I told my grandparents that a friend had invited me to their house, Grandpa started questioning me about who they were, how long I have known this friend of mine, and everything you can imagine. When I answered everything, they asked about where their houses were, if there would be adults and who they were. Basin started with many aras and some foo-foos, laughing when she found out that my friend was a girl, which amused my grandmother a lot, saying things like, I didn't know that my little Sora-chan was so interested in having his first friend be a girl, foo-foo, as she ended up laughing, making a joke that a 7-year-old boy at that time wouldn't have to understand. But I understood and ended up embarrassed by what my grandmother said with a red face. Funny thing, although I can say that at that time I would have been 23 years old in real age, I did not notice it at all. I think it is because the body and brain are the ones that react before these things, and not my experience of my life, as if my brain were not fully developed tuned, as if my emotions and reactions were the strings of a guitar that you tune by putting or removing pressure. I think the brain of a child is similar, as if it were not fully tuned, having emotional imbalances in the tuning process of the mind when we grow up. Hence the tantrums and the lack of self-control that a child has, or in my case, a fit of embarrassment that made my 7-year-old face look like a cherry, which my grandmother saw and laughed mischievously as she blurted out, "If you guessed good, more arasaras and foo-foos." When the weekend came, my grandparents took me to Judy's house. When the three of us arrived in front of Judy's building, my grandparents and I got out of the Mizutani Shin MZ3-2, which, like the other cars of the same Shin series, has 4 doors. Oji loves cars. When I asked him why he chose a Mizutani, he told me, "Since we live in this damn city, at least I will drive a Japanese car." When we got out of the car, the Alvarez family was also waiting outside the building at the gate, and they approached us with smiles on their faces. Basin smiled when she saw Judy and said to me in Japanese, Sora-chan, what a cute friend you have made." Although I didn't know it at the time, Judy had a similar moment with her own grandmother. "Vea vea, Ranita, pero que guapo chico has heko amigo." When we approached, my grandparents and I were the first to introduce ourselves with a little bow, which made the Alvarez family a little uncomfortable. But, you know, they invited us to their house, so we had to show gratitude for the invitation and respect. All this old-fashioned paraphernalia was driving me crazy, but I couldn't do anything else with Basin around. Although it doesn't seem so, I fear Grandma more than Grandpa. Grandpa is serious and straightforward. If he has a problem, he says it and discusses it, and when the conversation fight beating his giving you is over, he goes back to his grandpa mode, as if nothing happened. But Grandma is scary. She doesn't forgive or forget. You do something she doesn't like, and it won't show on her face if there are people around. She'll keep her composure. But at home, it's like she takes off a human mask and brings out her true Yukiona self, looking at you with icy eyes, not speaking, like you don't exist. She'll make food and call for dinner, but you'll have nothing on your plate, or just a single noodle and a glass of water. Grandpa and I have a small cupboard in the training room full of food to prepare for these times. But still, when she finally acknowledges your existence again, although you almost wish she wouldn't because it makes your blood freeze, she'll start to list everything that has angered her, telling you she doesn't cook or care for people who upset her. You might spend 3 days eating just a grain of rice until she calms down and tells you what you did wrong. It's brutal. And sometimes, She gets angry over things she has no reason to be upset about. But you don't find that out until 3 days later when you finally explain, making her happy and forgiving you. But by then, you've already suffered for nothing. Then the Alvarez family introduced themselves. And that's when I met Judy's grandparents, Peter and Ainara Alvarez. Ainara was an older, active, and direct woman whose character resembled my grandmother's, but also the complete opposite. It was like they had the same wave frequency, but each on the opposite side of the axis. One active, the other serene. One direct, the other spiteful. One like fire, the other like ice, all that jazz. This contrast was quickly apparent when Ainara opened her mouth and said, "So, this is the kid who left you an AI from a big corporation that's worth more than the entire building where we live, hem." When Ainara blurted that out just seconds after introducing us, we all reacted in our own way. Ha ha, Peter laughed a bit nervously, trying to downplay the comment without contradicting his wife. Aobason put her hands to her mouth, feigning surprise but clearly amused. "Sora. Did you give that to someone?" my grandfather shouted angrily. I had left the chip with the AI without telling him or asking for permission. I didn't know I couldn't. Grandpa had given it to me after I complained that I couldn't find anything useful at school. Big corporation? It's worth more than a building? What? I said in surprise. So, it was from a big corporation? Grandpa was into that world, but this was news to me. The value shocked me. I had no idea it was worth so much. When Grandpa gave me the AI, it reminded me of the ones they had in the academy class that David went to in that series. I didn't know it was worth so much. Abuela. Judy yelled at her grandmother, frustrated that she jumped straight to the point of why I was invited this weekend without even letting us enter the building first. Ainara, I told you not to be so direct, but reasoning with you is always the same. Peter sighed, shaking his head at his wife's lack of tact. Then, looking at Judy and me, he added, "Judy, Sora, why don't you go talk to each other while we old folks discuss boring things?" Nodding, I walked away with Judy, knowing they wouldn't let us stay to see how Grandpa would react. We moved far enough away that I could still hear them if I concentrated, closing my eyes. Judy was puzzled, realizing I was trying to eavesdrop despite the distance. To her, it seemed impossible. "I'm very sorry for my wife's tactlessness," Peter said when he thought we couldn't hear him. Judy, seeing me close my eyes tightly to listen, tried to mimic me, which I found both cute and funny. "But I want you to know, Masasha-san and Aoi-san, if it's okay for me to call you that." "Please, just Musasha and Aoi is fine, right, Aoi?" Grandpa said. "Of course," Grandma smiled. "We're not in Japan after all, so when in Rome, do as the Romans do." The other day, when Judy excitedly showed us the chip her new friend from Night City had left her, we were happy to see her so joyful. When she asked me to help install it in our PQC asterisk, I was surprised she couldn't open it on her own PC. But when I saw it was an .ia file with several petabytes of technical knowledge, I didn't know what to think. I was concerned and told her to invite you so I could explain that you shouldn't give away things like this so casually. I hope you understand. Also, I apologize for my boldness, but I deleted some unimportant code from the files, code used by a certain big Asian corporation, to make it safer. "Thank you so much, Peter-san," Grandpa said with a serious but grateful tone. "This is all my fault. I should have explained the chip's importance and value when I gave it to Sora, but I was excited. It was something his mother entrusted to me so he could learn whatever his heart desired. I'm just thankful it was given to your granddaughter, with whom Sora has become friends. As for the code, don't worry. It's better for everyone that it's gone. There are too many prejudices tied to corporate people." "No need to worry, Masasha-san," Peter replied. "We all have pasts, some to be proud of and others not so much. Don't concern yourself with those kinds of prejudices." But by then, I was no longer paying attention. I was too stunned by what Grandpa and Peter had said. So it was my mother who gave the chip to OG. And with what Ainara and Peter said about a big Asian corporation, plus Grandpa Masashi's supposed past as a bodyguard in Japan, it all pointed to one thing. My mother worked or used to work for Arasaka. And Grandpa, maybe he did too? They never told me how my grandparents' children passed away, but from the way Grandpa raised me, I wouldn't be surprised if they were warriors who gave their lives for Arasaka. Could Grandpa have been that dedicated to the corporation? I was so deep in thought that I didn't hear Judy talking to me until she punched me in the arm, snapping me out of my detective mode. Ouch. Why did you do that? I asked, rubbing my arm. Do you really need to ask? You closed your eyes like you were listening to the adults. Obviously, you can't from this distance, and then you made a pained expression. You weren't listening to me, so I had to hit you. You should thank me, she said. TCH. Just because you can't doesn't mean I can't. I joked. I've been improving since I was just a cell, so I can do things you can't. Really? Judy asked with wide eyes, shocked by my joke. Whoa, ha 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 ha. I couldn't stop laughing, almost falling to the ground because she'd believed the nonsense I said without hesitation. But now that I think about it, how can I hear my grandparents' conversation sometimes? This body scares me. When I returned my focus to our grandparents, I realized I'd missed a lot. Peter was waving goodbye to Grandpa, who looked confused as Aoyo Basin climbed into the driver's seat, and Ainara got into the passenger seat. As we watched, Judy and I saw our grandmothers ride off joyfully, while Grandpa sat puzzled in the back seat. We approached Peter to find out what had happened. Your grandmothers left to buy groceries for us all, and they decided to leave your grandfather here so he could take care of you too while we talk, Peter explained with a smirk, leaning in close to say, let's hope they return before we start talking about boring things. PQC, Personal Quantum Computer. So he also did that with his airbender moves. Of course, I have to control him. When I turn around, he's doing crazy things. Hey Iko, how was the woman? The one that Sora ranted about the roads to, the one you told me about? Oi, it's not a rant. Don't say it like I'm Grandpa when he rambles on. Hey, since when can Iko communicate? Yes, you traitorous dog, I exclaimed as I waved at Judy and yelled at Iko. The traitor hid behind Judy, as if seeking protection from me. Damn dog. TCH. You're here already. It's about time. You know? I thought you forgot about our project. To be a hero, saving mothers with children from mean junkies who want to steal and do evil in Night City. Ha ha ha, Judy teased, causing a vein to swell on my forehead. She was mocking me for helping Gloria, hugging herself as she narrated whatever Iko had told her, brushing away an invisible tear like a damsel in distress. Then, she put a hand on my shoulder just to laugh in my face. Again, making me think, freaking dog. What's the matter? Are you jealous that I did my good deed of the day with another woman? Don't worry. The bad deed of the day I plan to do with you, my Ranata, I retorted, trying to embarrass her in revenge for laughing at me. I grabbed her chin with 2 fingers, holding it close while she continued to laugh. But now, her mouth hung open, her face not quite processing what I had said, until she turned as red as the fire truck behind her and pushed me and my hand away from her flushed face, turning around. I may have overdone it, but I wanted to see how she would react. Would she like it, or would she be disgusted? Wow, I didn't think she would react like that, I thought as I watched Judy, who didn't turn around after a few seconds. Well, it's okay. Oi, Ranita, are you, HH? But, what's your problem, woman? That hurt. Damn it, I exclaimed as I grabbed my groin after being hit by the nunchaku, which Judy had taken from the wrench. She still had a somewhat embarrassed expression on her red face, but she seemed kind of happy. So you liked it, eh, Ranita? I laughed in my mind as I pondered what to say. You deserve it. Pervert. Who do you think you're saying that to, pervert? Judy retorted, running over her words. I'm also going to kill Grandpa. Sorry, Peter, but I couldn't hold back anymore. Well, or nothing. Hey, Judy, it was a joke, okay? So, drop the wrench. The Minisoras can't be treated like that. I'll give you the manual, I said with a smile, looking at Judy, who froze for a moment before lunging towards me with the wrench held high. No. Another joke. Stop, Ranita, stop. Let go of the wrench. Let's talk. I'm sorry, okay? Come here, pervertido, pig. If I catch you, I'll smash them, and don't call me that. Oi, Judy, stop! I shouted, stretching my arms up high toward Judy, causing her to halt her chase with her 30 centimeters wrench still raised. Judy, you really need to learn to control yourself. Do you want our children to be born dumb or what? I knew I was going to pay for that comment, but I couldn't hold back. As a fist slowly headed for my face, which I suppose I deserved, I closed my eyes and accepted Judy's slow punishment. Boom! When I took the blow, I dropped to the ground as if someone had cut my strings and continued to keep my eyes closed. H.A., you deserve that, pendejo, for laughing at me, you damn slit-eyed demon. Sora, you wouldn't say my fist knocked you out, would you? PSCH. You think I'd fall for something like that? Sora, you're okay, aren't you? Oh, Sora. Answer. It's not funny anymore. Yes, it is, I thought to myself. As I continued with my act, I noticed that my head was no longer on the floor and was resting on something really nice. 9/10 if I have to rate how comfortable I am right now. Sora, come on, answer. It's not funny anymore. Oh, there was some fear in her voice. It almost made me stop, almost. I'm not going to get mad anymore, so, alright. Sora. Enough. Wake up, Sora. Until I felt something splashing me, and, hick. Sora. Wake up, now, please, sniff. When I heard that, I felt what I thought were tears I could no longer hold back. My silly joke had gone too far. I opened my eyes, feeling bad for making Judy worry so much. But when I opened my eyes with a worried face, ha ha ha. There was Judy, with my head in her lap, looking at her face upside down, laughing happily and triumphantly for having won our little prank and not fallen for mine. Shit, she still had a bottle of water in her hand, which she used to simulate tears. Shit. But looking at it the other way, I was actually very comfortable, so it was a win for me. As she laughed, I got more comfortable in our current position, causing Judy's laughter to stop, and she asked me, somewhat surprised, what are you doing? Well, it was you who put my head on your legs. I just got comfy and enjoyed myself. Hearing my cheeky reply, Judy retaliated by, she started stroking my hair, and we stayed like that without talking for a few minutes. Then, without knowing how long exactly, I opened my eyes, feeling refreshed by the little respite Judy and I had. Shall we get to work now, Judy? I felt that my tone when I spoke was somewhat different. If I had to describe it, I would say serene. Yes, let's get started already. We have a lot of work to do. It was strange. I also noticed the same tone in Judy. Without wasting any more time, we got to work on fixing the truck. When it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we took a break to eat and rest, and I gave Judy the bento that Grandma Aoi gave me. That she loves them, and I also like them very much. Resting in the shade after eating when the sun was at its highest, before returning to work on the truck, Judy told me that she needed to go home for a moment. When she came back, she brought with her a small box that she could carry with one hand. Sora, this is for you. I made it myself. Judy said as she handed me the plain box, but with a beautiful black color. Okay, thank you, Judy, I said, embarrassed, without knowing when I had become so nervous. When I opened the box, there was a piece of black wool. When I took it out of the box, I could see that it was a scarf in a closed form, a rather large black neck tube. I don't know what to say. Thank you, of course. I mean, when you're in summer, you always feel like wearing a scarf, so, thank you. I said with some sarcasm at the gift Judy had given me. I really appreciated it. Next to that guitar from my old life and Cortana from my mom, this was without a doubt the best gift I've ever been given. Although I didn't know what it was for, it was still the third best because Judy was the one who gave it to me. But still, I was puzzled. Rolling her eyes and then answering, Judy said, "Don't be a jerk, and put it on. You'll be surprised." She finished with a confident smile. When I did as she said and put on the scarf, which reached the beginning of my sternum at the bottom part and covered my chin at the top part, almost touching the collars with LEDs of my jacket. Okay, pull it up to your nose and say active.set.1. I did as she said without saying anything, as I was now too interested in the not-so-simple scarf Judy had given me. Seeing her expectant face, I couldn't help myself. It's morphin time, I said while striking a pose like certain heroes with colorful tight lycra. I know there are no crickets in Night City, but I swear I could hear them as I made my silly joke, which earned me Judy rolling her eyes again. But the corner of her mouth subtly turned up, which, to me, was worth the reward for my silly joke, and I was satisfied. Active.set.1, I uttered as I finished my cringeworthy moment. I noticed the area above my nose and ears stiffening, making it harder to pull down the scarf mask to hide my face. It appeared as if there was light emanating from the scarf around mouth level. When I glanced at Judy for a response, she was smiling and spoke. Ha ha ha, it works great, Sora. Connect to Eco's communications chip ID and look through their cameras. Upon hearing this, which I wasn't aware Eco had installed, I noticed a communication request from 000023123441 in my IDN. That explained how she could communicate with me. It made me wonder how much and how many private things that traitorous dog must have disclosed to that stalking woman. Eco had always been capable of receiving messages to accept commands, but Judy had installed a chip ID with the ability to receive and send data in various file types to IDNs. I accepted, and a small window appeared in my field of vision, showing my reflection as if I were looking into a mirror. I was surprised by the scarf Judy had given me. It bore a drawing of more lights with an open mouth full of teeth, which looked quite intimidating and reminded me of Eco's robotic mouth when not covered with the hologram. Observing my surprise at the scarf and mask she had bestowed upon me, Judy contentedly remarked, "Okay, Sora, pretend to laugh or make some exaggerated expression at the moment. The facial recognition tech by touch is in its infancy. Its code still requires a lot of improvements." I followed her instructions, opening my mouth as if I were laughing loudly. I could see from the real-time video Eco was sending me that the jaws changed, and the corners of the mouth lifted up, making the jaws appear as if they were laughing. It brought to mind old cartoons from my previous life of dogs, where they laughed with closed snouts while their mouths smiled, displaying their fangs. I continued experimenting with different expressions: sadness, anger, surprise, etc., and each one caused the more drawing to change, matching my expression with some animation that reflected the emotion I was portraying. Judy, sorry for the earlier joke. It's great. I love it, I exclaimed, excited about the gift. Upon hearing me, Judy smiled proudly and said, "I'm glad you liked it. But it's not just a scarf with lights." I asked Grandpa for help, and the scarf is made of elastic ballistic fabric that provides bulletproof protection and can adjust to fit. The fabric coats a filament of thermo-absorbent alloys. While you wear it, it will absorb some energy from your body heat and the environment to replenish its energy. I don't know what to say, Judy. But why did you give me such a cool gift? I have nothing to give you, I remarked. Noticing my tone, Judy laughed and replied, "Haha, don't worry about that. You've already helped me so much, with Cortana, helping me with the truck without hesitation or asking for anything, even during high school with the whole Minimox and Tiger Cubs thing. You're also the first friend I made when I came to Night City. I wanted to thank you for all that. When I asked my grandparents, they told me to give you a gift. That's why it's the scarf, to thank you for all that. Just that. Not that I care about you or anything. For being my best friend for these 7 years." Unable to hear the end of her sentence, which was barely a whisper, I could only smile at the gift Judy had given me. Disable.set.1. With those words, the lights on the scarf went out, and the fabric relaxed on its own, revealing my nose as the top came down, partially covering my chin. Judy has more sets ready. I thought about filling them in together. I didn't know what more animations to put, so I left them empty. There are 2 more set holes to add. Great. Thanks for the scarf, Judy. Really, I said, halting my body's inclination to perform a bow of gratitude for Judy's gift. I could almost hear my grandparents laughing as if they were watching me. Should we continue with the red giant? I suggested, tilting my head several times, gesturing towards the truck we were finally about to set rolling, and changing the subject to conceal my emotions. As it approached 6:30 p.m. and dusk began to settle in, Judy's perspective, ha ha ha, I laughed proudly. Finally, at last, at last, at last. We are finally done with the beauty. It must have been abandoned for at least 10 years. When I found it, I imagined myself going to high school with it, leaving the other kids impressed. I even envisioned Sora in it too. I know it's silly to bring it to high school, a thought a little girl would have, but there is something about that place that scares me. I thought that with the fire truck as property, I would gain something, even if it was a childish sense of safety. For me, the transition from middle school to high school was immense. Previously, there were only boys and girls of different races with different features or colors. But now, everything had changed. They started forming groups, bringing weapons to school. Firearms were prohibited, but that was all that was forbidden. So, all these groups that formed in high school carried bats, knives, and pipes, and some even carried hammers or swords. It wasn't just the weapons and the friends you lost because they acted like they didn't know you when they joined these gangs seeking safety and new friends. It was also the looks they gave you. There were all kinds of looks, the ones from most girls of superiority, as if you were inferior to them, the ones most guys and some girls gave you, as if you were a piece of meat or plastic. That's why I became friends with the Minimocs. They still had those looks, but at least I could tolerate them. Well, for that and another reason, a guy from high school named Shiro Ishii, the head of the teenage gang, Tiger Cubs. 4 months after starting high school, Ishii, 2 years older, grabbed my arm and said, "You're pretty, cute. Why don't you become my doll or baby, and you'll never have to worry about anything else in your life." It still makes me want to puke remembering it. Apparently, there were some girls who liked that stuff, but I just gagged. I can only be thankful that I became friends with Sora. When he saw my scared and disgusted face, he went over and broke Ishii's nose and headbutted him. Hell, it's about time. You know? I thought this shit was eating up all the repairs we were doing, this damn trash, said Sora, his voice gruff, almost angry at the truck as he kicked a wheel. Oi, Sora, don't say anything about this beauty, or I won't let you get on. It's true that it cost us a lot to drop it off, well enough to get it started. You're serious. 6 months, 6 months of work to fix this damn truck, only to realize just now that we can't change the ignition battery without lifting the whole engine. I didn't know it was so beat up. If it holds for the first ignition, when it fries again or gets too hot, it will most likely break or explode. Crash, shattering glass. When he said that, I swear I could hear something breaking within me with the sound of broken glass. It can't be. Is the ignition battery really that bad? My dream of going to high school. No, it can't be. I thought as I kicked the other wheel of this damn piece of junk that has stolen my dream. Oi, Judy, what are you doing? You wouldn't be thinking of something silly like coming to my house to pick me up or going to school with the truck, would you? Said Sora, causing me to freeze my tantrum against the truck. Feeling embarrassed that he noticed, Sora smiled and said, "All we have to do, if we can get the engine started, is to make that trip the best of our lives." His words sketched a somewhat maniacal grin. Judy POV. All we have to do, if we can get the engine started, is to make that trip the best of our lives, he said as he sketched a somewhat maniacal grin. Those words caught me a little off guard, but the almost maniacal grin he was making seemed to be infectious, because before I knew it, I too was smiling and climbing up behind the steering wheel, with a Sora as excited as I was by my side. Everything or nothing. With those words from Sora, I hit the engine start-stop button on the truck while praying to every religion I know for the truck to start. Click 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 boom vroom vroom virum vroom vroom. Yes, I shouted with joy after the engine made a loud starting noise and stayed almost purring for me as it stabilized. Cool, come on, Judy, let's see what this junk on wheels can do. When Sora said that, I stepped on the accelerator while removing the brake and the truck started moving. When it started moving, I directed the truck to the road. I was starting to feel more nervous than excited, and then I saw Sora starting to touch buttons on the dashboard of the truck, making me ask, Sora, what the hell are you doing? Nervously, "Don't worry and drive, I'm just getting ready." Don't worry, he said, repeating "don't worry" too much, causing the opposite effect by fearing what he was doing to getting ready. Then I could hear something that made my blood curdle, and I cursed our bad luck. NCPD siren. This is the police department of Night City. Stop the truck at this instant. NCPD siren. Repeat, stop the stolen truck right now. If IT doesn't stop, we will open fire. When I heard that, I could only curse, seeing how a police car pulled in front of us. When I turned to see what Sora thought of our situation, he was laughing. You jackass. You knew this was going to happen, right? What are you saying? How could I know that as soon as you put the truck on the street, we would be stopped by the NCPD? You slit-eyed demon. You knew. It doesn't know how. But you lie to me. That's why you were so happy and preparing suspicious things when we worked on the truck. It's over. I'm going to stop. When I said that seriously, I saw how Sora's smile was erased from his face, while I released my foot from the accelerator, making us slow down little by little. Then, something pushed my leg down when Sora's hand pressed my leg down and made me accelerate suddenly, against the car in front of me, the police car, staking him out of the carriage a little bit, making him crash into a lamppost, embedding the police car. Upsie, said Sora while smiling again. I didn't know how to process after what had just happened. Why you realize what you have just done? With luck, you have managed to get us arrested, and with a bad one. Kill us, you idiot, and if it's not them, it will be our grandparents. Hee, don't worry about that, Judy. When I heard what Sora just said in a calm but happy tone, I stared into his eyes. If my eyes could disintegrate with a look, Sora wouldn't exist right now. Seeing my expression, Sora moved his arm while making 3 clicks with his fingers, coinciding with the swinging of his arm, making Sora look like the sassiest woman you can imagine, and sang, "Let it go, girl. You can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Judy don't care about what they will say. Let them in, let them see. Be the bad girl you always have been." I was puzzled. I liked it, but was puzzled. Sora, seeing my expression, said, while still wearing his smile, "In the little time in peace we have before more police cars appear." TCH, I thought all the girls loved Frozen. Not that I didn't like it, I liked it, but the situation doesn't allow me to say anything. Sora, now seriously, we have dash Judy. Tell me, can you hear your heart beating? Said Sora, interrupting what I was going to say, putting on a serious face for a change. But when he finished talking, what I feared the most happened. More police cars were coming to us, and now there were 3 of them. Damn, I don't know if my heart can take it. I thought while my heart was beating even harder than before, so much that I started to feel like I had a needle inside. But it wasn't painful at all. There was something exciting in that pain. You're kidding. I can hear it. It feels like it's going to escape through my mouth. It hurts even in my chest. Tell me, Judy, that pain, how does it make you feel? Stop right now or we'll open fire. Last warning. I thought about how that pain in my chest made me feel as I listened to the NCPD's last warning and the sirens of the rest of the police cars. Wee-wee-oh, NCPD sirens. Excited. I said, whispering to myself, as I inadvertently let go of one hand from the steering wheel and took to my heart. Ignoring the sirens and NCPD threats, everything faded away, even Sora. I could only hear my heartbeat. Thump thump, ba boom, ba bump, thump thump, ba boom, ba bump, ba boom. When I got back to the truck, I had a smile and, ha, I feel alive. I screamed excitedly, knowing it was that needle sticking in my heart making me feel alive. Ha. Hee. With my answer, I started laughing hysterically and Sora followed me a few seconds later. Wee-wee-oh, NCPD sirens. This is the plan. Make that feeling last. Be your guide. Judy, I'm going to the gap in the water cannon installed above the water tank. Said Sora as he turned on the radio, splicing the audio output of the cabin with the speaker system of the fire truck sirens sounding music all over the street, drawing the attention of the entire block. See, can you feel it? Are you crazy? We've never tried it, nor do we know if there is water in the tank. Can you touch it? Wee-wee-oh, NCPD sirens. Don't worry, the water cannon was one of the first things I repaired on the truck and I checked the tank. It is also 56% full. Apparently the tank kept the seal for 10 years, said Sora, as if what he said wasn't a problem at all. How much time he must have wasted fixing unnecessary things, and then he complains that we took so long. While he pulled up the scarf I gave him and activated it, illuminating some robotic toothy more. Seeing that I copied him, I reached into the wide pocket of my mechanical overalls on my leg and pulled out a light grey closed scarf, with the same shape and functions as the one I gave to Sora. Hee. Apparently I wasn't the only one who expected things to be like that, right, Judy? Said Sora with an amused face when he saw me also wearing a mask scarf with lights with a cat animation. I couldn't deny it. I knew that at some point Sora would get me into some kind of trouble. Proof: the 3 police cars that were starting to surround us from the front, back and one side. Get ready, cause here we go. Wee wee woo, NCPD sirens. See, can you feel it? Yeah, shit. It's ending, said Sora as he was about to leave the window, but stopped and sat again to wait for the next song to come on the radio, which made me want to hit him with a hand to get him to come out at once and do something. Oi, stop it, Judy. I'm coming out, okay? I'm coming out. Stop hitting me. With all of Sora's nonsense, I noticed I wasn't as nervous as before, and then the next song came on the radio, with a soothing and calm guitar solo. I quickly realized what song it was and thought, I love this song. I love Jackie. This song was one of my favorites, The Pretender. Keep you in the dark. Keep you in the dark. You know they all pretend. You know they all pretend. Keep you in the dark. Keep you in the dark. And so it all began. And so it all began. When the lyrics of the song started, I also started singing without realizing it, and it made me forget the cops as well. Hee. You seem to like Jackie a lot, don't you, Judy? It makes me get almost jealous. You know. Even your nerves are gone, like singing while 3 NCPD cars are chasing us and threatening to shoot us. But you know this song is not by Jackie, the original band. It was called Foo Fighters. What are you saying, that the one who sings is not Jackie's? I said, somewhat offended by what Sora said about Jackie. No, it's definitely me singing, but the lyrics are by Foo Fighters, said Sora with a smile as he went out the window, before winking one of his eyes at me, making the jaws of his face do the animation of a kiss and throwing an animated heart. Wee oh, NCPD sirens. Are you Jackie? It can't be. I screamed as I was able to process what Sora just said. Sora POV. Keep you in the dark. You know they all pretend. Keep you in the dark. And so it all began. As they repeated the first verse of the song, I climbed out the window and climbed on top of the truck, making the air hit my face and body, shaking me as I stood up, making my heart pound harder. Interrupting as I walked on top of the truck enjoying it, I received a call from IDN from Judy's, which I accepted. It cannot be that you are Jackie. You're lying. I give you that you sound something like him, but I've been in your room. You only have one guitar. You're just pulling my leg like you always do. You can't possibly be Jackie. You don't have the same shape as the one in the videos either. Nor has Eco told me anything. Oi, I alter my voice to sound older. It's normal that you don't recognize me. Also, you don't know what Jackie's figure is, since in the videos it's a shadow with a background that I like while I play the guitar. As for my room, you haven't been in my man cave where all my instruments are and I record the videos. It looks like you asked Eco very general questions, and the code you wrote is really cool, making Eco smart enough to find loopholes to your stalker questions to protect the secrets of her favorite creator. Send in your skeletons. Sing as their bones go marching in again. They need you buried deep. The secrets that you keep are ever ready. Leaving what looked like a Judy speechless, I arrived at the hole in the end at the back of the fire truck, where the water cannon was installed, and activated the screen that was in the middle of the cannon controller, activating the pressure pump to 50% power. Are you ready? Coinciding with that verse of the song, making me smile, and in turn my jaws also made the same animated expression. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, but from excitement. I'm finished making sense, done pleading ignorance. It's not that I hate the NCPD. Sure, there are some who joined because they wanted to do something good, like Barry Lewis or River Ward. The bad thing is that there are very few within the group of bullies, corrupt and corporation dogs of Night City that make up the proud members of the police department. After living 14 years in this city, I came to the conclusion that they are not that different from any of the Night City gangs. Well, not so much. That whole defense, spinning infinity, boy, the wheel is spinning me. At this point, the Barneys inside the cars already knew what was going to happen, seeing the water cannon pointed at them and seeing my animated smile. One of the NCPD cars sped up, and I tried to pass in the adjacent lane to head towards the front of the truck. It's never ending, never ending. Same old story. Let's make this trip unforgettable. I thought as the lyrics infected my mind, and I started singing along too. Aimed at the NCPD car that invaded the lane of the road next to ours, trying to overtake us when FSSSHHH. Open water cannon. What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one of your plays? The water shot out, crashing into the NCPD car that wanted to overtake us, specifically on the windshield, causing it to slow down a little bit because it couldn't see anything with all the water. I kept going like that for a few seconds until, "You are the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender?" Bam! Crashed into the back of an expensive car that was in our adjoining lane, in the same lane that the cop was trying to overtake us in, pulling what looks like a corp in expensive clothes and his very pissed off bodyguards towards the car that hit them, poor cop. Making me laugh out loud. Damn it, why not? I shouted excitedly while also drenching the corpo, making him fall by the water pressure and his bodyguards. Calming down a bit after that funny scene, I said to Judy, "1 down, 2 to go. You're crazy, Sora. You're going to get us killed, you know that." Humph, ha, muffled laughter. She seems to have been amused by the way I have watered the corpo. "Of course you're having fun too, you know. I think you're the one who's a bad influence on me, a shy Asian guy who likes robotics. Sora, freaking shameless. I swear I'll..." "Judy, turn on towards Little China," I yelled, cutting off Judy's tantrum. "In time or so I'm told, I'm just another soul for sale. Oh well, the page is out of print." As I kept dropping water on one of the 2 police cars chasing us. For the moment, I went back to pointing at the windshield. Judy started swerving with the fire truck to take the exit as I told him to, while the NCPD car couldn't see the turn we made nor what was on the road when another one was heard. Bam! Against the guardrail separating the road from the turnoff we took coming down from Kabuki towards Little China. Hell yeah, hee hee, only one left, good job, bad influence. Hump, ha ha ha, not so silence laughter. Sora. I swear, if we get out of this without getting killed by the police or our grandparents, I swear I'll kill you for today and all your foolishness. In time or so I'm told, I'm just another soul for sale. Oh well, the page is out of print. In time or so I'm told, I'm just another soul for sale. Oh well, the page is out of print. We are not permanent. We're temporary. Same old story. When we finished going through the detour and entered the center of Little China, attracting the attention of all the people who passed by on the street, even people recording us with their pads, cell phones, or eye implants that made their eyes light up. Well, it was easy since we had music playing at full blast, drowned out by the sirens of the fire truck. As I kept shooting water at the only NCPD car that was chasing us at the moment. What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one of your plays? You're the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender? What if I say I'm not just another one of your plays? You're the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender? Screech. Bam. With the sound of braking, the last NCPD car could not see the curves of the road with all the water. It went off the road, going up on the sidewalk and crashing into the poles, generating holographic billboards with advertising on the streets of Little China, creating a spectacular scene for anyone who saw it. Ha ha ha, Judy laughed out loud. Hee hee, damn you, Pio. I shouted, making people look surprised to see us and hear us laugh, riding on fire trucks and damn police cars with the water cannon of the truck. Seeing their shocked expressions and some others shaking their heads at the scene, others seemed to like what they saw. However, I didn't care much about them. I just focused on the pain in my chest and making it last as long as I could. Judy's crazy driving snapped me out of my thoughts. Realizing where we were in front of the H10 mega building, where in about 8 years V will live, next to Johnny's ghost, my dad. I wonder how he will react if he knows he has a son. Damn him. Not that I care what that old man thinks. As we passed Tom's diner, it made me realize the route Judy had chosen and what lay ahead, making me scream with fear. Beware. I don't know if there is enough height for the truck to pass. Oi Judy, brake, you're going to kill Emmy, woman. Sure we'll get in, me at least, ha ha, says Judy. Feeling the truck speed up, in response to my screams, as we sped down the subway road of Little China, and as I huddled in the hole of the water cannon control, making myself as small as I could to save as much of the Sora as I could. As we passed, the roof of the road came within inches of my face, but not close enough for the truck to shoot sparks from the roof as we sped past. Judy, that was insane. How does it feel to get a taste of your own medicine, demon? I was joking before, but you really are bad influence. Say what you want, but tell me, Sora, do you hear your heart beating? Hump haha. Tell me, did you find it good as a guide? I've made it last. Bah. With that comeback, I could hear Judy's laughter making me sulk as he laughed at my newfound beliefs, at the few times I get serious and don't make jokes. Is that how Grandpa will feel when I make samurai jokes? What if I say I'm not like the others? What if I say I'm not just another one of your plays? You're the pretender. What if I say I will never surrender? As I got back to my feet after exiting the subway section of the road, we came upon an NCPD roadblock blocking the street with 2 NCPD cars together almost touching and 4 police cars chasing us from behind. It's getting out of hand. Here, as I was cursing and laughing in my head, I noticed the truck speed up, and Judy said, "Hang on, Sora. I'm the voice inside your head. You refuse to hear. I'm the face that you have to face, mirroring your stare." Fearing what this unbridled woman was thinking, I grabbed what I could as the truck accelerated towards the 2 police cars that were stopped cutting us off, and when we were seconds away from reaching the barricade, Judy stepped on the brake of the truck while turning the steering wheel, making me wet my pants in fear, metaphorically, because of the position the truck was in that made my little heart beat so hard that it felt like it was playing the drums of the song. The reason was the position the truck was in, with half of its wheels up while leaning to the side of the turn, making me see the ground from an angle close to tipping over. When the turn was over and we were still almost tipping over in the process, we were nearly touching the NCPD cars, but now we were parallel to them, after Judy's homicidal maneuver. Immediately she sped up again, pulling the truck into the alley in front of us, generating sparks again as Judy crashed into the narrow walls of the alley. The policemen, who had left their cars as a barricade, remounted and joined the 4 NCPD cars that were following us. Shush, whistle impressed. Incredible maneuver, Judy. From now on you will be the getaway driver. Haha. Have you seen the look on the cops' faces when they thought we were going to ram them? Ha ha. They were pissing their pants. They weren't the only ones, I thought as I heard the excited Judy. Bang. With that first gunshot sound, they interrupted our conversation. Judy, be careful. It looks like the Barneys have run out of patience. Duck as low as you can while driving, and take us to the road that borders Watson, but don't take any bridges, especially towards the corporate center, as when we put a foot or a wheel in this case, on the ground in that part of town, the drones and turrets will shoot to kill, not like the Barneys who seem to be going for the wheels. I'm the voice inside your head, you refuse to hear. I'm the face that you have to face, mirroring your stare. Judy did as I said and headed for Watson's outside, while I increased to 70% the power of the water output, and now I was starting to mess up the police cars. I wasn't braking them, but the pressure was enough to start to make them brake, or if he changed the target shots with the hose, he made them swerve, knocking the cars off balance and hitting each other. Bang! 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 They started shooting at the wheels of the truck. I'm glad that NCPD are not so vicious as to shoot exemplary teenagers like us to death. Bang! 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 I'm what's left, I'm what's right. I'm the enemy. I'm the hand that'll take you down. Bring you to your knees. When we got to the road that borders Watsun, we were on the road that separates Kabuki from Little China, towards Little China, when I noticed we had 7 NCPD cars and an AV flying over us. For a second I was scared as shit, thinking it was the police, but it turns out it is from Network 54, and it seems that they were recording our chase with the police. I could only be happier for Judy's gift. Hee. Look, Judy, we're going to be on TV. I said over our call as I sent her a screenshot of the AV from News 54. Hey, I hope our grandparents aren't watching the news. Unknown POV. AHG. A shitty day, I said out loud as I sighed, thinking about what a rotten day it has been today, with jobs being messed up by both the mercs who take them and the Corps who send them. Today I had sent my best group of mercs that I had as a fixer to do a job that got messed up. The one who ordered the job, a corp, wanted to steal data from an engineer of another rival corporation, Militech in this case. The one in charge of the job also gave us a chip to directly copy all the information that the Militech engineer had in his head without having to interrogate him, hack him, or torture him to get it, the so-called experimental data extraction chip. When my group of mercs managed to capture the engineer after clearing those protecting him as he left his lab, they took him to a safe place, and when they put the chip in his neck port, when it started to work, his head exploded, leaving everyone present wearing the insides of that poor guy's head. I don't know if it was the chip or some antidata mining method the engineer had installed in the jar that blew his head off, but out of a team of 6 of my best mercs, only 2 survived the ensuing Militech attack to retrieve what was left of their chief engineer. The ones who survived from my mercs were the second in command of the group and her partner. And all that shit leads to me, the fixer, the one who gets a job from the white collars or whoever can afford my services, and I choose someone capable of doing the job. The problem here is when the job goes to shit, and you have to put up with, in this case, a pissed off corpo, because the job he ordered was probably messed up because of his damn fault. And obviously he pays it to the one who sent the job. Me, the freaking queen of the fixerks of Night City. As I miss the old days, when I recognized myself in the mirror, when I looked at myself, I was proud of what was reflected. When all the others were still together, when he was still alive. Sighing and lighting a cigarette, I hear 2 people come up behind me. Knowing who they were, I didn't turn around and just looked at the cars passing by on the road bordering Watsun, passing in front of the alley. Yo, Rogue, I know we screwed up with the job and I understand you don't want us to work with us anymore. I have talked to Dorio and we are going to form our own team. I have also contacted Faraday to take over our jobs from now on. I just want to say that I'm sorry for the job going to shit. All of them. Taylor and Dave and Chris and Franz have always been professionals that I have learned a lot from. I just hope you don't hate them. For them, you were their role model. With what Maine said with a tone of fear at the beginning and almost in tears at the end, I felt a knife in my heart as I thought of those who died today for a job that was destined to fail because of a damn corp that played me and also asked for compensation for the failed job. But I didn't change my cold and indifferent expression, remembering all the shit I've done to get to where I am. When I was about to answer them to get out of my sight, something interrupted me. The 3 of us turned to where we could hear gunshots, NCPD sirens, and what seemed to be music. Hearing this weird mix of police sirens, gunshots, and music, I got a smile on my face, as I remembered someone who also liked to cause the same combination of music, NCPD sirens, and gunshots when doing some prank or going out partying and getting drunk, of music, NCPD sirens, and gunshots when being chased. Remembering that my mood improved a bit, that mix also drew Dorio and Maine's attention to what was happening on the road, and the 3 of us headed down the street to see it. General POV. Howdy, howdy, Night City. Welcome back to Evening After Evening with me, Ziggy Q. My guest today is Wallace Boudin, Deputy District Chief of Watsun with the Night City Fire Department. Hi there, welcome to the show. Said Ziggy, the talk show host who had become popular this year with the debut of his TV program, known for his ironic way of speaking and unpredictability in interviews. Hello, Ziggy. Thanks for having me. Answered Wallace Boudin, a 50-year-old African-American man with 30 years of experience as a firefighter, representing the FDNC in this interview. Boudin knew exactly what kind of interview awaited him, but he had no other choice. If he wanted a raise in the NC firefighters' spending budget, which had been steadily decreasing since the tragedy of H3, this interview was the only option he had been given. Yet, this interview could very well turn out to be a trap or a joke. I hope you made it to the building without any issues. No cut stairs or disabled elevators preventing you from getting up to the studio? Ziggy asked wryly, waving his arms in an exaggerated fashion. No. Fortunately, I was able to get up here without any of the problems you described. Our department's firefighters also inspect the elevators and fire exits in our respective districts, replied Buden, fully aware of what Ziggy was implying. Hold on. You're saying the firefighters are doing their job right? Then how do you explain what happened in the Haywood District megabuilding H3? We can all remember that horrible fire. Let's take a second for the tragic lives that were lost. Ziggy paused dramatically before continuing. Well, so how can you say the FDNC is doing its job right when that fire burned up to 22 floors, a quarter of the megabuilding went up in flames? The elevators were supposedly inoperative due to malfunction, and most of the emergency exits above the 50th floor were closed. So, tell me, Chief Buden, what happened? Where were the firefighters when 384 people burned alive because they couldn't escape the inferno in that mega building? Buden clenched his hands tightly, so tightly that his fingernails dug into his palms, drawing blood. It was the only way to contain himself after hearing this so-called journalist ask such cynical, irony-laden questions. Ziggy was filling his mouth with the deaths of nearly 400 people while ridiculing the FDNC. Chief Buden took a deep breath and recalled what happened at H3, one of the worst fires in Night City's history. It was also intentional. It happened during the last Valentino's war against Maelstrom. The Valentinos had turned the top 8 floors of megabuilding H3 into a base of operations and a clandestine drug lab. The NCPD knew about it but did nothing. Maelstrom knew too, and acted. They broke into the H3 control room, deactivated all the elevators and fire systems, and closed most of the emergency exits. Then they set fire to the top 20 floors to annihilate the Valentinos on those 8 floors, with no regard for the families, children, and adults who lived in the rest of the 22 floors that burned in the blaze. But the information about the actions of the gangs was swept under the rug when the mayor of the city chose to declare that all these events were due to the inaction of the FDNC. This decision was made to avoid tarnishing Night City's already damaged image by exposing a gang war that had claimed 384 lives in a single day. Instead, the blame was shifted to the FDNC, leading the masses, the media, and politicians to hold us accountable for what happened. Salaries were slashed, and the budgets allocated to each district were further reduced. Buden still remembered Marcus, his counterpart from Haywood, who had served as the district chief. The media and society vilified Marcus as the main culprit of the fire, accusing him of failing to send firefighters to do their job and thus condemning all those people to their deaths. Marcus couldn't bear the weight of these accusations. His breaking point came when his son was beaten so severely in high school that the boy fell into a coma. His wife, Maria, descended into madness upon witnessing what had happened to their innocent son. On top of that, the FDNC insurance did not cover the medical treatment, and they lacked the Eurodollars to afford the care he needed. When their son died, Maria vanished. It was believed she wandered into the Badlands, her mind shattered and her eyes empty of hope. Marcus, having endured all of this, finally gave in to despair. He climbed to the roof of the medical center and jumped to his death. A man who had sworn to serve and protect his city was blamed and condemned by the very citizens and leaders he had devoted his life to. His story became a tragic tale known only within the FDNC. Well, perhaps there was one other organization that knew the truth: the NCPD. Once practically brothers with the FDNC, their bond was severed after the H3 fire and its consequences. To Buden, the NCPD betrayed them, shifting blame to the FDNC to protect their own image. This betrayal fostered a deep resentment between the two organizations, one that lingered to this day. I can't answer for my fellow members of the Glen Sub-District. I can only speak for the men and women I supervise and vouch for their work. But I'm sure the firefighters who went to that fire did, Buden began, struggling to maintain his composure, only to be abruptly interrupted. He clenched his fists, doing everything he could to suppress the urge to strike this plastic-faced provocateur, Ziggy, whose accusations seemed to drip with venom and mockery as he continued to criticize the FDNC's supposed failures during the H3 fire. It had been the NCPD themselves who wouldn't let the firefighters in, even after 3 hours of waiting, 3 hours of watching desperate people jump from windows to escape the flames. The police claimed they couldn't secure the H3 control room, where Maelstrom had barricaded themselves to prevent any attempts to extinguish the fire. The gang held out as long as they could, even dying in the process. By the time the NCPD finally secured the control room and allowed the firefighters to reactivate the fire systems, elevators, and emergency exits, 21 of the 22 burning floors in the H3 tragedy had already been reduced to ash. Yes, the same thing the late Deputy District Chief of Haywood said. What was his name? Marlon? That his brave men put their lives on the line to. Ziggy interrupted himself, flinging his upper body theatrically onto the desk in front of him to convey mock exasperation at Boudin's explanation. But suddenly, his eyes lit up as though he had just received breaking news. "Oh, Chief Boudin, I'm getting word of an NCPD chase happening right now in Watson. Apparently, there's an FDNC truck involved. And since we have you here as an expert in the field, why don't you share your thoughts? Thanks to the insatiable workers at Channel 54, we've got exclusive live footage of what's going on." "Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, Ziggy," Boudin replied, his tone serious and cold. He was still processing the disrespect Ziggy had shown by mistakenly calling Marcus Marlon. Another jab, another reminder of how a good man had been framed, driven to despair, and ultimately, to his death. Despite his simmering anger, Boudin forced himself to stay seated in what he now considered a circus of an interview. He knew how badly the FDNC needed their budget restored. Without those funds, they couldn't properly do their jobs that had already been made nearly impossible after the H3 tragedy. Shifting his focus to the supposed NCPD chase involving an FDNC truck, Boudin furrowed his brow. Did someone steal one of our trucks? He wondered. But almost immediately, he dismissed the thought. If that had happened, he would have been informed right away. Instead, unease settled in his gut as he waited to see what exactly Channel 54's exclusive footage would reveal. "Pov of Biz Isis ho ho. Looks like you've got a flower up your ass. Biz. Apparently, Ziggy does care about the chase, just like you said. We're live in 20 seconds. Be ready, and remember, don't screw this up. Unless, of course, you want the network's AV to become your second home. Like what happened to me when I pissed off the bosses by publishing that story about Biotechnica's supposedly health hazardous meds without their permission." Lyle McClellan, a veteran at Channel 54, chuckled at his own misfortune. He was a true journalist, one of the rare few left in the business, though his cynicism had grown over the years. Unlike that plastic man Ziggy, who only cared about ratings and building a career on the backs of guests he ridiculed. "Shut up already, Lyle." I snapped. "I don't regret what I did. Those Biotechnica bastards are killing people with their medicines, you know." Yeah, same tune as always. Corpo this, corpo that. Listen, I don't care about your crusades, but if you really wanted to bring down Biotechnica, you should have waited until you had firm proof. Instead, you went and put out a half-baked story, and now look where it's gotten you, barely clinging to your job and stuck here in this metal coffin, controlling traffic with me. He laughed bitterly. "What I'm saying, Biz, is that anyone else would have been kicked to the curb already. So, don't screw this up. You hear me?" Before I could respond, the comms crackled to life. "You've got 10 seconds. And we're live." I took a deep breath, nodding as Lyle's words echoed in my mind. I pushed my frustrations aside and focused on the task ahead, broadcasting the live feed of the NCPD chase. To me, the whole thing looked more like a prank orchestrated by a couple of teenagers having the time of their lives. They were singing, laughing, and even shooting water at the NCPD cars chasing them, all while blasting music through the fire truck's PA system. The music was so loud, I could hear it from inside the AV. It sounded like one of Jackie's hits, you know, that trendy singer who either inspired laughter or admiration. I couldn't decide if the guy was a joke or a genius. But then I remembered how he'd released all his music into the public domain, giving people the freedom to do what they wanted with it while shielding it from corporate use. That move? That was pure rebellion. It reminded me of the kind of thing we could have done back in the day if we hadn't been broke deadbeats, scraping together pennies just to keep our instruments working. Watching the chase unfold, with its bizarre mix of music, gunshots, laughter, and sirens, something stirred in me. It took me back to the old days, back when Johnny was alive, pissing off everyone in his orbit. I hadn't thought about that bastard in years, but now, this chaotic symphony unfolding below me was like a scene ripped straight out of our past. "Live!" shouted Lyle, snapping me back to the present as he lowered his hand in a sweeping gesture. "Good afternoon, Ziggy," I said smoothly. "This is Biz Isis, reporting live from Channel 54's AV, flying over Watson." Howdy, Biz." Ziggy's gratingly cheerful voice came through the feed. "Meet Chief Bouden of the FDNC, who'll be joining us to comment on the exciting news you're bringing us." 10:33 a.m., June 13th, New Tokyo, Japan. "This way, Hanako-sama," said Sandayu Oda, is the head of my bodyguard team and also Masashi's second disciple, as he would open the door of the armored car with company markings for me, as we were leaving a laboratory that I own. "Today I came to review their progress in their research that they have done with my sponsorship." "Thank you for your work, Oda-san," I said with a polite tone, for Oda's job well done as my chief bodyguard. "No, I do not deserve such words of gratitude. I am only doing my duty, Hanako-sama." Listening to his serious, polite, and somewhat boring answer, I did not insist, but it made me think that maybe it would not have been such a good idea to let Masashi-san raise Sora. I do not want my son to grow up to become someone like Oda, who follows orders as if he were a robot, with no character or with such a serious personality, always with a frown as if that face you could never imagine making a smile of happiness. I just hope that Aoi Basin could soften Masashi-san's stiff character a little bit. I still remember Minamoto's serious but emotional character, very different from Oda. I remember when he was in charge of protecting me and the confident smile he gave me the last time I saw him, when he blocked the vehicle from the outside to safeguard my life while he faced the attackers alone. Because of Minamoto's actions and character, I chose Masashi-san and Aoi Basin to take care of and raise my Sora. That little thought about Sora sent my mind into a tailspin into the void of my mind, where there was only one thing that mattered to me, almost like an obsession. How is Sora? Is he happy? Does he have any friends? Does he like any girl? If he has gone out with his father, he probably has more than one. Will he look like John or does he look more like me? Will he be eating well? Has he also agreed to follow Masashi-san's teachings? How much has he grown? Thinking about all those things, it made me remember the conversations I had with a certain Cybertube singer that made me smile and imagine how my Sora was, almost answering the doubts I had. He, in the messages, seemed like a happy, foul-mouthed, and somewhat cheeky boy, who made me laugh many times at his silly jokes or his failed attempts at one. How he left me speechless when he implied that he knew who his father was in our first text conversation. When I couldn't hold back anymore. When listening to Dream On, the song he uploaded when he was only 12 years old, I cried with joy and worry when listening to it. The first time, as the second time I listened to it, I noticed that his voice was obviously altered to sound older. The third, fourth, and fifth times, I fixed my attention on capturing the emotions with which he sang that song, full of sadness and hate that disturbed me for thinking that my son would have lived his short 12 years to sing with those emotions in his voice. That's not how it should be, how I planned to grow up. I did everything I did just so my son would not grow up with those emotions inside him. But then in the same song, all those negative emotions changed, as if they had never been sung, to one of happiness, almost making the listener be infected with that feeling of almost love towards life, which made me cry, knowing that my son had such a light inside him. Thinking of Sora, as I did most of the time, a smile formed on my face, which Oda noticed, causing him to ask a question that surprised me that this man asked, not because of the question itself, but because of his willingness to ask it, since practically never did Oda start a conversation with me on his own initiative. Forgive me if it seems inappropriate, but does it seem that the visit to the laboratory that we have made has pleased you, Hanako-sama? Making me blink several times in surprise at the sudden question asked by Oda-san, who himself came to the conclusion when he saw my smile at the thought of Sora, it is because he thinks I am satisfied with the work they have done. When they showed me his progress on various projects I have invested in. Oh, forgive me if I've upset you. If you don't want to answer, don't worry. First of all, I've been out of place by asking, Oda-san, relax. I was just looking at you surprised, because normally you are not the talkative type of person who initiates conversations. It doesn't bother me at all that you ask me. On the contrary, I'm glad you ask it and show your opinion in private, like you have done now. I said as I interrupted the nervous Oda, who I imagined punishing himself by cutting a finger on his head for the wrong he thought he had done by asking me a simple question. As for the visit. Yes, I have been pleased more or less, with the progress they have been making with the money I have provided for them to investigate. As for my smile, that is a secret. Tell me, Oda, what did you think of the advances they showed me today at the meeting? I was impressed with the investigations being conducted at that lab, Hanako-sama, especially the Clo Dash. I was listening to Oda's answer out of pure altruism, not that I really cared about his opinion, when he cut his own sentence when he saw the expression I made when I got a notice from my network search system, which I had prepared just in case, with certain keywords, that, if they were typed or said next to a certain city, I would get an automatic notice to my own IDN. Oda, stop the vehicle, get out of the car, secure the area and wait for me to warn you. Did you understand? I said with a serious tone and cold eyes, which made Oda just affirm with a scared face and get out of the car. Connect with the international signal, with channel 54, I said out loud, talking to the computer on board the car. Less than a second after I said it, a holographic screen appeared in front of my seat, with channel 54 of the American corporation Network 54. That was broadcasting what looked like a chase of police shooting at a fire truck, which was firing back at the police with its water cannon controlled by a young black-haired teenager wearing a mask with lights. The young man could clearly be seen having fun while shooting water at the NCPD cars while bobbing his head to the beat of the song. The song that was playing over the public PA system of the fire truck, which I had instantly recognized, as it was Jackie's song The Pretender. When I saw this and recognized who the young man in the truck was, I was at a loss to process what I was seeing and could only hear the host and the guest fire chief commenting on the chase. So Chief Buden, what can you tell us about this fire truck that these young teenagers are using to entertain all of us present with this magnificent street performance along with the collaboration of the proud forces of the NCPD? Well, if you look at the truck's ID number at the top, you can see that it is Watson's Firehouse 66 Truck 81, which, if my memory serves me correctly, was reported lost about 9 years ago due to minor causes. But the city council refused us the permission to tow it back to the firehouse. So you're saying it's not a stolen truck but a 9-year-old truck that has been restored by those 2 teenagers riding it? If I had to guess, I think it is as you say. Maybe these teenagers found the truck abandoned, repaired the causes of the initial breakdown and the neglect of those 9 years of no use, and when they got it, they rode it to celebrate their success. They brought to the attention of the NCPD that they didn't even bother to run the truck's license plate through the database, which shows the truck status as abandoned or out of service. They came to the quick conclusion that it was stolen without checking anything else as the NCPD normally does, only to find themselves faced with the refusal of these skilled young fellows who managed to repair the abandoned truck with their efforts. Said the fire chief with a clear grudge against the NCPD. Interrupting what the fire chief was saying, you could see the young man who was in the position of controlling the water cannon on the fire truck cut off the water for a few seconds before turning it back on, and you could see him grow an almost comical laugh from the luminous maw of the scarf with which he could not be identified. If you're not his mother. When he fired water again, the pressure had increased, causing the windshields of cars to not be able to withstand all the pressure, causing them to give way, flooding the police car and its occupants, who, in trying to avoid the continuous stream of water, swerved, crashing into another of the nearby NCPD cars, taking the 2 cars out of the chase after the crash. Making the boy laugh, in turn, made the animation of his mask change, laughing with him when he turned his gaze to the AV that was recording him, winked cheekily, and his mask followed him, throwing an animated kiss directly to the camera that was recording him, leaving speechless for a few seconds the host and the chief of the firefighters, but not me. That wink made me reactivate my brain that was blocked, unable to process what was happening, making me unconsciously shout out, "Sarah! What the hell are you doing?" Oda's point of view when I got out of the car along with the rest of the team as ordered by Hanako-sama, we got into defensive positions around the car, securing it, when shortly after a short while we could hear, "Sarah!" scream muffled by the car. What sounded like an angry scream from Hanako-sama herself, reminding me of the serious face and cold eyes that had ordered me out of the car, giving me goosebumps in the process, made me automatically pity the poor soul who has managed to make Hanako-sama lose her temper for the first time since I've known her.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going. Plus, it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.